up?
All right, we rolling. We rolling right now. And we straight politicking. I'm here with Munchie B, the mayor.
Hey.
And we got Madd Ronald sitting in as a guest co-host.
All right.
And, hey, Madd Ronald, we got an interview dropping with you probably later this week or early next week.
Okay.
So I don't want to get too much into the details of where you've been for the last 5 years, but we can briefly talk about it because it was a significant thing that happened to you.
Right.
You got picked up in 2000.
2020.
Oh, I'm tripping.
2020.
You got picked up in
You
You got picked up in 2020 by the GBI, Georgia Bureau of Investigations, here in Los Angeles, and got extradited back there for a Georgia RICO, the same thing that Young Thug and Gunna was facing. I think they hit them after they hit you, right?
Words right.
Okay, bring that mic a little bit closer in, and adjust that volume on his mic, please. Because I'm sounding louder and he's not sounding like.
How do I sound?
Okay, you sound good now. So, what was that all about, man?
Well, in reality, the whole thing was a bunch of BS because of the fact that it was someone else that they was under investigation, and I just happened to be in communication with the person. But considering the person that I am, considering my attachments here in Los Angeles and what's going on back there, you know, they want to put me in front of everything. So basically, October 27, 2020, I was at home, and I was working for Uber back then, and I was running my carpet cleaning service. So I was at home, and I had been home probably a few hours because I was up all night working, and I was on Instagram because back then I was trying to do my little podcasting thing, and when I was on there, I received a DM from someone and they had said, okay, what you did Saturday was really cool because that Saturday I had went to the church on 73rd and Western because my homeboy Mark Ellis is a pastor, and he himself comes down from Oakland, and he does things like pass out food and stuff because he's from Los Angeles, actually. So he always comes down here when he gets the opportunity and, you know, makes contributions and helps out. So I'm helping them because they're doing a drive-through food giveaway for COVID, right? So I post on my Instagram, my Facebook, you know, they're giving away food down here. Everybody come down and get some of this food. So that fast forward to Wednesday, I'm on Instagram and someone contacts me on Instagram and they say, "Oh, that was really cool what you did at the church Saturday. I grew up in that church. My dad was the pastor. This, and this, right?" So you know we chatting. You know how you chat back and forth, you know, like social media thing, you know, social interaction. So we chatting back and forth. So then it's actually they it's like a female, and they say, "Well, I work at the Starbucks on 28th and Figueroa. I'm working the drive-through window. Come through and get a free cup of coffee on the house. This, and this, right?"
Yeah.
Now, you know, that's my favorite Starbucks right there. And it just so happened that was such a major coincidence to me. That was a red flag. So I'm like, in my mind, I'm not thinking about law enforcement. I'm thinking this is a setup. I think somebody trying to assassinate me or something. That's how I'm thinking. So I'm thinking right then and there, how big as the internet is, big as LA and as big as the world is, what's the odds of somebody on the internet contacting me from around the corner? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So at the same time, also, my daughter comes in the house. So me and my daughter up here talking. So my daughter was pregnant. So I'm the daddy. I'm the daddy hollering at her. You know what I mean? So when she come upstairs, she talking to me for a few minutes, whatever it was she came for. So I said, okay, I'm going to walk you downstairs, right? Because I was finna go get my hair braided. So I walk outside, man, and when I walk to the front door, and I walk out the front door, I'm talking to her, I'm hollering at her, because she's right in front of me. So I get out the door, and I look down, I look at my shirt, I said, oh, damn, I got a dirty T-shirt on, because I'd been up doing Uber all night, and I hadn't changed my T-shirt. So I pull my keys out. Now, I'm standing one direction, I'm scanning the street, looking at the curb, and I don't see nothing. Now, when I turn around, and I pull my keys out, and I'm finna go in the door, and I get ready to put my keys, I say, oh, damn, I got a dirty T-shirt on. I pull my keys out, I turn around, I pull my keys out. Before I could stick the key in the door, I hear somebody say, freeze. Man, I turned around, I had like 60 officers in there with...
Wait, 60? 60?
Yeah.
Damn.
With AK-47s, I think M16s, shotguns, and handguns drawn on me. It was the L.A. County Sheriff's Department. It was the LAPD Metropolitan Task Force. It was the Georgia Bureau of Investigations Gang Task Force, and it was the Federal Bureau of Investigations. It was a joint task force. They had put together a joint task force to come get me. So at this point, I'm like, they said freeze. I turn around and see all these officers. I'm trying to figure out what the fuck going on because I ain't done nothing. I ain't involved.
How did that many cops just pop out of nowhere? How were they set up?
I don't know because see, remember now, this was the thing. I was being catfished from Starbucks. Whoever said they was at Starbucks.
Yeah. Favorite Starbucks.
Because the key was they wanted me to come out the house. They was trying to get me to come out the house because this person who was on Instagram was probably trying to get me to come out for like 2 hours. Hey, I'm over here because they saying familiar stuff. And the thing they saying to me is like, hey, I'm at the 99-cent store now and this and this and this and this, but I got to go back to work in a few minutes. I'm in my head, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. This is too close because the internet is just too big for you to be so close to me. This is how I think.
So you were walking from where you stayed at to the Starbucks?
No.
He didn't even make it to the curb.
No. I didn't make it to the curb. I was going walking my daughter out the house.
So you just barely got out the door.
I took 2 steps out the door, looked down, said, oh shit, I got a dirty t-shirt on.
Yeah.
Pulled my keys out, turned around. I didn't even get to stick the key in the door. I just heard freeze. They were staged outside already. That was the key. I didn't catch it. My neighbors, because I've talked to my neighbors since then, since I've been back. And my neighbors were like, man, they was in the I think a Spectrum truck or something like that there, and they had all kind of undercover vehicles, and they was here and there. Because my neighbors looked spooked when I walked out. I just didn't know what was going on because I ain't doing nothing for the police to be looking for me.
Yeah.
So my neighbors looked spooked. So when they grabbed me, they put me in the car, and it was a trip because when they grabbed me, I'm looking like, I'm trying to figure out what is this about because I ain't involved in nothing. But at the same time, by the time that they got me in the car, I told motherfucker, man, I don't want to talk to nobody. I ain't got shit to say to nobody. Get me to the jail, motherfucker. What time?
Hey, look,
I want my sack lunch.
Look. Because since this interview about to drop soon, we ain't giving it too much. But I just want to know, how long was they investigating you?
Over a year.
Over a year.
I heard I was under surveillance too.
Okay, all right. And being where you from, you think it's any significance with this 2020 thing, the year 2020? You think, let's get them now, 2020, ha?
Nah, I'm going to tell you what it was. They arrested me on October the 27th, 2020.
Now I'm about to ask, are you from 27th Street? I got questions because the feds is real.
You really got to mess me up right there because they got me on October 27th.
That's what I'm asking.
Operation Cage Dubs.
That's what I'm
really
saying.
Messed me up.
The police, they do these type of things. Oh, 20 Bloods.
You really messed me up. You really just messed me up.
I'm like, are you from 27th Street?
So you think when they gave Eric Holder that 60 years, that has something to do with him being
not
from
really?
No, let me share.
But when the feds do it, they real witty.
But I want to share with you though. Munchie B just kind of messed me up a little bit there with that one right there because he really just blew my mind because I wasn't thinking like that.
Yeah.
But the reality of it was that they arrested me on October the 27th, 2020. The presidential election was November the 3rd, 2020. Donald Trump was pushing, what is that he pushed? Law and order? What's that agenda he pushes? The Republicans pushed that
hard on crime, right?
Law and order or something like that there.
Tough on crime.
Tough on crime, whatever it is, right? Now, you know that Georgia's a Republican state.
For sure.
Brian Kemp is a Republican.
Well, I think Georgia is becoming a swing state.
That was the controversy in 2020.
They didn't want Georgia to be a swing state.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the controversy in 2020 when I was arrested, right?
Yeah.
So basically, the reality of it was all political. Because if you saw the press conference the following day, you didn't see no uniforms. You saw suits. You saw politicians. You saw people that were up for election.
Yep.
That's what you saw. You did not see the officers that arrested me. You didn't even see the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. You saw the head officer, I think it was Vic Reynolds from Georgia GBI.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Vic Reynolds. I'm the director of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and we're here this morning to announce the return of a major indictment in Upsoin County.
The Attorney General was at that press conference talking about you.
It's my honor and pleasure now to call on Attorney General Chris Carr for a few comments. Chris.
Director Reynolds, thank you so much. And let me just start by commending and congratulating and thanking our friends and the men and women in law enforcement that are here today that have worked on this operation for over a year. The safety and security of human beings is a fundamental need. In fact, so much so that our Constitution, in the second paragraph of our Constitution, it says that protection of person and property is the paramount duty of government. And Governor Kemp has dedicated and prioritized in our state the protection of all persons and property. And his vision was to create the Georgia Gang Task Force knowing that over half of all violent crimes are committed by gang members.
The governor was at that press conference
Right.
talking about you.
Right.
The 83rd governor of the state of Georgia, Mr. Brian Kemp.
Thank you, Vic, for that, and I'm honored to be here. I just want to first acknowledge, as Dan and Vic both did, all the professionals that we have in the room that have worked day and night, literally, on this case and many others to get us to this point today. I know the First Lady has been mentioned, but her and our girls are strong supporters, not only of law enforcement and our men and women serving in armed services, but all the folks that are working with them side by side every day, our first responders and our prosecutors, and a lot of other people, quite honestly, that aren't mentioned that are all part of this whole team. So I want to thank you guys for that, as well as our First Lady for being here. I did just want to mention our Attorney General, Chris Carr. There's no greater team player in the state of Georgia than Chris Carr when it comes to stopping street gangs and going after drug cartels and ending human trafficking. It's something that he has worked on.
The female prosecutor was at that press conference.
My name is Marie Broder. I am the district attorney for the Griffin Judicial Circuit. I want to start by thanking Governor Kemp. Thank you so much for your fight against criminal street gangs. It should be inspiring for the rest of the country, what he's done, and the encouragement that he continues to give. I also want to thank Attorney General Carr. Thank you for your support. You'll never know how much we appreciate you. And Director Reynolds, wow, your team is just incredible. I can't say enough about Jarrett Ursher and John Melvin, Mike Carlson, and your agents that are on the ground fighting this fight. I also cannot say thank you enough to the lead GBI agent on this case and his team. They spent countless hours pouring into data, investigating these individuals who were committing violent crime. Thank you. And to my team, standing here, thank you for all of your hard work. As you all have heard, this was truly a group effort. It was important to me because I've served this community, Upson, Pike, Spalding, and Fayette County for many years. I have seen firsthand the suffering and the evil that gangs inflict on our community here. They thrive by targeting those who are often overlooked, promising easy money and often delivering nothing but a criminal record and a lifetime of regret. The Griffin Judicial Circuit is my home and it is my hometown. In my opinion, it is the greatest circuit in the state. And as your district attorney, I will do whatever it takes to protect this place that we call home. That is why I have partnered with all of these agencies to bring this case to an Upsoin County grand jury. You see, over the past several years, I have watched as gangs infiltrate our circuit. Gang members, this is for you. Make no mistake, if you choose to commit crime in the Griffin Judicial Circuit, whether you wield the gun yourself or direct another to wield it in your place, we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. Director Reynolds is right. We will extradite Madd Ronald Chapman and those others that have been indicted across the United States.
And then a whole bunch of people standing in the background that didn't even talk.
All wearing suits.
Yeah.
But it was political. I'm going to show you how political. I'm going to show you it was political. Watch this. The governor didn't come out and speak on Young Thug, and Young Thug is a resident of Georgia.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
The governor didn't have nothing to say about his case, and he's a resident of Georgia. But they arrested Young Thug in a different time. They arrested me in election time.
They arrested Young Thug, I believe, in 2021. Did it come?
Something like that. Something like a year and a half later.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, though, he didn't get arrested at election time. You see what I'm saying? They campaigned. They campaigned on my back is what they did.
Now, I remember when you first got taken into custody here in Los Angeles, they took you to the LA County Jail, right?
Right.
You decided you didn't want to fight the extradition. You were just like,
well,
F it.
Let's
get it over with.
This is what it was.
Yeah.
I didn't know Georgia laws. I thought the United States, this is the U.S., I thought the laws were the same. I thought that all that stuff would prolong me getting out because I had not committed a crime. If I go commit a crime in Los Angeles, if I commit a crime in California, I will go to my arraignment in 72 hours. In 14 days from that 72 hours, I will have a preliminary hearing where you got to bring the evidence or dismiss this case.
Yeah.
And if you bring the evidence, now we're going to bound this over to Superior. Then I'm going to have a pretrial because we got to make sure you got enough evidence to take me to trial, right? I thought I'd go to see the judge in Georgia 2 weeks, and ain't no case, ain't no evidence. I'm walking out the courtroom. This is what I'm thinking, right? When they came and got me, man, I got to Georgia, man. They put my ass straight in the motherfucking hole and left me there for 6 motherfucking months. Let me out at 10 o'clock at night to use the phone for 30 minutes a day.
Damn.
I couldn't talk to no lawyers or nothing. They isolated me for the first 6 months. I was in straight isolation. I was in segregation for my first 6 months there.
Hey, what was it like being in the LA County Jail 14 years since you had been there? Because I think the last time you was there was 05, 06?
06.
06. So now you're there in 2020. It must have been a lot different.
I'm getting old, man, because I feel like the old dude now. I remember going to the county jail being the young dude.
Yeah.
Going to the county jail, man. I remember I was in the county jail back in the days in the blood module. I was in there when they started shutting the blood module down. I was there when they started sending us to the main line. I remember when they was on the main line, settling the main line, and the bloods was coming out, and the beefs had to be dealt with from different angles and different ways with the different dudes out there. But it all had to be squashed and dealt with because everybody was black.
Now, the last time you was in there in 06, I think that's when Munchie B started making his way in and out the county jail. Am I right about, is the timeline about right, Munch?
06, no, I was still juvenile system, but shit, I was about to get out and go to the county a month later type shit.
Okay, yeah.
This is what was different to me.
Yeah.
Okay, I was in the county jail. Okay, I went to SuperMax first. I went to SuperMax. I was in SuperMax for a while. I was in SuperMax out there at Castaic, above Wayside. So anyway, when I went back to the county, and I was on a tier, and it was interesting to me because of the fact that it was funny because the dudes that was looking out when I got to the county, it was some young Crips. It was a dude from PJ Watts and it was a dude from Santana Block, and they made sure everything extra trays. OG, you need a tray? Yeah, good looking out, homie. Here, you need some blankets or something? Yeah, cool. Cool. Good looking out. I ain't trying to make it sound like they're giving me out of their pockets, but whatever they could extend me that came out of the county's budget, they, made sure that I had my issue. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't even like the old days in the county because of the fact that, I remember the old days when the first thing we do was hit them up. You know what I mean? It's changed because of the fact that I guess the severity of the things people going through and the time people facing in them county jails, it gets kind of serious. Then the politics wasn't so bad because there wasn't no conflicts really with black and Mexican at the moment. I'm going to say at the moment because you know how that goes, at the drop of a hat, the whole environment and the climate can change. But yeah, I went there. I sat in the county for close to a month. And then they came and got me, man. They took me to Georgia, man.
How'd you get to Georgia? What was how'd they transport you?
I flew on the Delta Airlines.
Oh, with
either Delta or United, one of them two.
So you're on a plane
I was on a plane in the back of the plane. They had me in handcuffs.
With other people on the plane?
Yeah.
Okay. Did they know you was cuffed?
I didn't hide it.
Okay.
GBI was like, yeah, you want to put the coat over the handcuffs? Nah, dude, I don't give a fuck about being handcuffed, motherfucker. I don't care.
That's crazy. I've never seen anybody handcuffed on a plane before.
I was handcuffed. And they both had guns. They told the stewardesses, we packing. I had one on this side, one on this side. I'm about to get off. I get there when we get to Hartfield Jackson, right? And I'm coming off the airplane. So my mind's somewhere else. I ain't even I guess it probably didn't settle in. I've been locked in LA County jail for the last month. I'm walking off the thing, and I'm in handcuffs. I ain't even really tripping off all this here. But then I'm finna turn and walk into the terminal, and there's a dude standing right in front of me, man. The dude said, stop right there. And I looked up at this motherfucker, man, FBI. I said, fuck, I'm finna go to the feds, right? So they took me some special way down to the tarmac because they had 2 SUVs under the plane. They had 2 black Suburbans under the plane with tinted windows, and they put me in the Suburban, in one of them, and then they got me and the 2 GBI agents rolled in one Suburban. The Federal Bureau of Investigations got in the other Suburban. Then they drove around the airport, and another Suburban jumped in. They took me around. They drove around like the airport, like the lot. What we call it,
the tarmac,
where the ground is at.
Yeah.
Okay, we drove around the airport. Another SUV jumped in. So now it's 3 SUVs. So now they take me out the back gate of Hartfield Jackson, and we driving on a dark road. Man, you don't know my thoughts, man. Yeah. I thought I'd never see Los Angeles again, man. I said, man, this it. I'm looking at all them trees. I'm thinking to myself, how many black people today hang from these trees? You ever been to Georgia?
Yeah.
You ever seen all them trees?
Yeah, it's a very outside of Atlanta, it's a very rural.
Yeah, but I'm saying,
Rural
you ever,
state.
you ever seen them trees?
Yeah.
It's millions of trees. I ain't never seen so many trees in all my life, and I would sit there and be like, damn, I know down here they had to hang motherfuckers.
You've been in L.A. too long,
I've
man.
been in LA all my life.
Yeah.
So, the geography different. These places are different.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at all of this here, and I'm really tripping off of it because of the fact that the thing about it that's mind blowing to me is I'm in the South, and there's a lot of history here. Because when I was in LA and I realized I was going down south, I said, God damn, we down there fighting with all this racial shit with the Mexicans and the whites and this and that. I said, what the fuck am I be beefing with in the damn South? The Klan? This is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking they beefing. I'm thinking there's some beef going on because it's the racial thing. To me, racism started in the South. You know what I mean? This is my perspective of things. I seen these movies, Mississippi Burning, and all these other movies about the Klan. All that's been down south in the Georgia, Mississippi, all them other places.
So you thought you was going to their county jail with some
right.
KKK?
This is my perspective of things. This is what I'm thinking. So anyway, we traveling, man, down through. Then we going on our way. And we ride for about an hour, man. It's like one of them long rides, one of them deep thoughts. They got country music playing. It's dark. Ain't no street lights. Them roads in Georgia ain't no street lights. Man, they take me, they say we here. They take me to the jail. And I look up. After about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, we get to the jail. They say we here. I said, where we at? They say we at the jail. Hey, man, I look out the door. I said, where's the jail? Because the jail only held about 200 people. So their jail might have been the size of one of our substations, something like that. Their jail, the county jail, right? So I get inside and I'm in there and I say, that I had to fill out some paperwork, and I had to call home and let my people know where I was at. And the first time it struck me, I said, I was talking to my daughter on the phone, and I said, yeah, I'm here. This. And my daughter said, where are you at? And I had to ask, where am I at, right? And they said, you're in Upsoin County. I said, Upsoin County?
Never even heard of that shit.
I never heard of it. Hey, man, I was in Upsoin County. I'm in Thomaston, Georgia. I'm in Thomaston, Georgia, man. I ain't never in my life heard of this place. I go to the county jail, man. First thing they do, they put me straight in segregation. Locked me up in segregation. Left me in segregation for 6 months. I went in there. I went to segregation November the 18th of 2020. I got out of the hole, had to be like June 27th of 2021. That's how long they kept me in the hole.
How soon did they have you in court though?
Man, I didn't go. I sat there for 2.5 years. I think I was in jail for 2 years. I was in jail 2 years before I went to court.
No. You wasn't in jail 2 years before you seen a judge.
No, I had the what do they call that when you first? Well, they don't do arraignment. It's like first appearance or something like that. And I seen the judge, the first appearance. That's like a 5-minute walk in. Boom, you're charged with this, and this. You walk back out. Then I went to another thing where I didn't even go in the courtroom. I just sat outside. That was like a couple months later. Then it was something else where I went in the room and they had lawyers, but I didn't have a lawyer. So they shut So
they didn't assign you a lawyer?
Not at that time, right? So I'm sitting here. It was, man, before I met my lawyer, I was in jail for about 70 days. I went to jail November 18th. I didn't meet my lawyer until New Year's Eve.
Man, that seemed like some type of constitutional rights was broken.
Hey, man, believe me, there was a lot of rights violations in that right there because of the fact that the way that they handled things. I never had a preliminary hearing. I never had a pretrial. I never had a discovery motion. I ain't never got my hands on a discovery motion. My lawyer told me the discovery motion was an audio tape. But if it's an audio tape, then why I can't get it written out?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Transcribed.
Why I can't get a transcript, right? I never got any of that there. And when I started talking to the lawyer, like I said, I didn't talk to the lawyer for the 70 days, my first 70 days. It took that long for me to even speak with a lawyer. So I'm sitting here, I'm limited to start with because of the fact that I'm in segregation. The only time I can get out my cell in segregation is at 10 o'clock at night when the second shift comes on, or the third shift.
Are you basically in the hole?
Yeah, I'm in the hole. But it's not the hole. Segregation is different because in that jail, their hole was a pod where you can go. They'll let you out at a certain time of day. You got an hour to use telephone or shower, right? So, but it's a pod. So it's a bunch of people in here with you. They're all just locked in. You know, if it wasn't a hole, it would just be another general population pod. But what they did was the whole. I was in segregation, I would say.
Okay,
They
so
had a metal door
what
back
you call
there with like 5
segregation?
cells, huh?
We'll call high power out here in LA County.
Something like right, because
So-
this is what it was. Watch this. The hole was a pod that was just locked down. Segregation was a space that had 5 cells and a shower with a big old iron door that slammed shut. So when they finish with us and they go back out and do what they're doing, that door shuts. You don't hear nothing from outside until that door opens up again. But the whole time you in here, it's only 5 cells in here.
Is all 5 of these cells occupied?
Depends.
So you can holler to cell, talk to somebody?
You can. I was in there for 6 months. I was in there when there were people there. When I first came, I was in there for like 2 weeks. There wasn't nobody in there.
Right.
My first 2 weeks wasn't nobody. I couldn't figure out. But then they started doing the quarantine for COVID, and they started bringing more people through.
Okay. Now, you had just recovered from COVID before you were taken into custody. Yeah. And I don't want to get too much more into what it was like being in Georgia because we're going to drop that interview real shortly. But since you've been home now, you've gone almost 5 years. What's it like now being back in L.A.? That's, after all of damn near half a decade, huh?
Man, I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Man, they got cars out here with no drivers in them, and they got robots carrying food down the streets. You got to get out, step out the way for.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, we got drones in the sky. I mean, the technology is mind-blowing because of the fact that that's the one thing that I look at, the technological revolutions that take place ever so often. So we are affected by these things, right? Because of the fact that we look up now, they got like that Waymo, that driverless car.
I was just telling Munchie about that. That's the new Uber.
Right.
And it's a little cheaper, believe it or not.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And it's mind-blowing because imagine, man, I'm just coming back now. Imagine I'm coming down here at first. I'm coming to L.A. I'm coming from Antelope Valley. I don't even have a car. I'm riding the train. I'm coming down the train. I'm walking out in the street, crossing the street, look up and see a car at the red light letting me cross, and ain't nobody behind the wheel.
Yeah.
Could you imagine this? Now, after 4 years, after 4 years of being in prison, this didn't exist when I left. You know what I mean? So in my mind, I'm looking like, wow, what is this? And I see the little robot that carries the food. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I seen it going up and down Western.
DoorDash.
The little robot. You know what I mean? I'm looking at the world like, man, are we in the Jetsons yet? Are we at the Jetsons stage yet? Remember those old days in prison, they would call it the Buck Rodgers dates.
Well, one of the things in the Jets, the Buck. Hey, who just mentioned Buck Rodgers dates? That was on Straight Politicking not too long ago, Munchie.
That was in prison.
Flossie from Long Beach.
Yeah. Back in the 90s,
Buck Rodgers dates.
If you had a date, if you got out today,
yeah,
that's what they'll say. If you had, back in the 90s or the 80s, if you got out in 2025, you got a Buck Rodgers date. Because remember, Buck Rodgers was in the 21st century.
Exactly. That was the name of the show, Buck Rodgers in the 21st century.
Right. You know what I mean? A lot of young people don't remember that.
No, that's a great little piece of history there because we have Flossie from Long Beach 20s talk about when he was in jail and you had your release date was in the 2000s.
Right.
That sounds like some Battlestar Galactica stuff.
Right. That was a Buck Rodgers date.
Buck Rodgers dates.
I met a guy in prison that had so much time, man. I remember this dude had so much time. The dude told him, man, you know your parole officer's daddy ain't even born yet. That's how much time you had. That's a lot of time right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a trip though coming back to Los Angeles though, man. You know what I mean? Because of the fact that if you take a trip to outside of this and you get to see what the culture is like and you get to see the perspective from other people have of LA, it's interesting. Because I was in Georgia with the gang members and I seen them. You know what I mean? I mean, it's a difference from going somewhere and seeing them on the street and being in prison with them. Because now I'm really, really intricately in their system. I see the politicking. I'm expecting it to be L.A., but it ain't nothing like L.A. because they don't have the race politics down there and everybody gets along. And I used to always tell them, you guys have a much better much better social system than California, but y'all prison system is shitty. Because down there, you can get some time down there for nothing.
Hey, I wanted to ask you about what they named the indictment because Munchie just mentioned that the feds, they're kind of clever.
He kind of messed me up with that, right? Yeah. He really messed me because I didn't think about it. They got me on October 27th.
No, but they called your indictment Cage Doves.
Yeah, Operation Cage Doves.
Now, Big U just got indicted a couple months ago. They called his Draws Down because he's big draws. Yeah. So they call this draws. Was it just draws down or draw down something?
I think it was draws down.
Yeah, Operation Draw Down or something like that. So yeah, they're always trying to clever with these names they gave.
This particular operation is dubbed Operation Caged Doves, and I'm proud to announce today that it's netting 46 RICO and gang statute indictments.
But see, I'm gonna tell you something, man, about a lot of that there, though. They will vilify you, man. You know what I mean when it comes down to that right there. I mean, I pay attention. I've been paying attention to like Big U's case and stuff. I don't know Big U personally, but I know Bear Claw. Bear Claw, he worked GRYD and developing options. He was the GRYD dude running the developing options program. When I was working for Volunteers of America, Bear Claw was always somebody that was there to offer resources. He used to always offer that, they coached football at Crenshaw High School.
Yeah.
And he used to always talk about, we can bring the clients up there. I think we got a brother, something that plays in the NFL. Because he used to always talk about getting us tickets to the football games and stuff. You know what I mean? So from having knowledge of the work that they was doing and the coaching and all this other stuff and the people, the young talent they were developing, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I can understand some of this here because I understand the backgrounds of people, and I know that ain't nobody perfect, but at the same time, I also understand how the media and law enforcement will vilify you, because they did it to me when I went to Georgia. They did it to me. I'm working for Uber. I'm on my own business.
Cleaning
I'm 100%
carpets?
legitimate. Ain't sold no drugs since 2006 maybe. This is 2020. I'm in a whole new life. Ain't bothering nobody, out and helping the community, feeding the people, getting the kids jobs. But boy, let me tell you, when I got out of the hole, I'm sitting down talking with the captain that runs the jail at Upsoin County. And he says to me, yeah, man, I know about the public speaking you did, and I know about the work you was doing with the kids out there, but GBI intelligence says that was all just a front for recruiting gang members.
Is that right?
That's what he told me straightforward.
Damn.
I said, man, but something I come to the realization of, too, within that fact is that, hey, man, an ounce of bad outweighs a ton of good.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you can hold something over my head and try to, you know what I'm saying, try to convict me in the court of public opinion. You know what I mean? Because also, keep in mind, this also is going to influence the jury pool because this is a small town I'm in. So think about the news. This is not no big city. So everybody's privy to the same information. I'm in town. Everybody know I'm in town. People coming in segregation saying, oh, shit, that's him. I'm in the thing. One dude sat up I'm in segregation. And I'm sitting in here, and like I said, 5 cells, right? But what they had started doing while I was there, they had started doing the quarantine for COVID. So they're bringing people back here now, right? So I'm sitting in the cell, and what they do back there is they take your mug shot and they put it on a picture so they know who's in the cell. You know what I'm saying? On a clipboard and it's hanging right above the cell. So a guy in the cell across from me was a young dude. He was a Rollin 60 Crip from Griffin, Georgia. He's a Rollin 60 Crip from Griffin, Georgia. And I was in the thing, and I'm sitting in my cell, and he had said something to me before, but I didn't carry on no conversation with him. Then the next night he was like that, and he said, oh, shit. He did it. He was just like, oh, shit, I'm in here with Madd Ronald. Oh, shit. I'm like, what the f***? He said, he started, and we start talking. He man, you on the front page. No, I take that back. It was a supervisor I used to talk to. In my first week there, he came to me. I got there like on Thursday. He came to me that Monday. He said, man, you made the front page. I said, man, I've been sitting in the hole for the last 5 days. What I do here to make I've been locked up in the hole all this time. What I do to make the front page, right?
They were just over there smearing your name in the newspaper.
Exactly.
Trying to influence the jury pool.
Exactly. That's just what I mean.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that it's a small town, it ain't like the media source is that great.
Yeah.
So then at the same time, this is a hometown media source, and all these people are attached and related. You know what I mean?
Hey, I think people were looking up to you so much, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're one of the first LA gang members to ever be on the internet.
I think I was.
Yeah.
I think I'm the first. I swear.
Yeah.
And this
What
is
makes you think that? Why you say that?
because I put him on the internet.
because he put me on the internet.
Yeah.
What year?
2000?
Something.
No, the 90s.
Either late night. Remember you started writing those articles?
I started writing in.
Yeah, you started writing
I started writing in 2000. Was it 2000?
It could be either.
But I got interviews before that. I had interviews before then.
Yeah, you started off writing articles.
I started off writing articles.
Yeah.
I was like, long time. That was.
And then
I
people.
don't think he's the first.
Well, who else?
It wasn't nobody back then. See, this is the thing.
The internet was dry back then.
No, let me share with y'all. Let me
Yeah.
share with y'all the difference, right? What he's saying is that in those times, there was no Android. There was no iPhone. For everything that you did, you had to sit at that PC, and we didn't have the modern technology that we have right now to be able to do this so easy.
I had a rundown office on Adams.
Yeah. See, to like I was saying earlier about when he was doing his videos, and he put a video up, and the video back in them days, technology, the choppy video, we still trying to watch it. But there were no other gang members. And when I say that on the internet, I mean I'm somebody that was on the internet engaging and somebody that was already creating content. Back in them days, gang members would look at me and say, man, you on the internet? What you on the internet? People look at the internet, they look down on it.
I seen interviews with B. Brazy though.
B. Brazy from Denver Lane. Well, that was more music related. That was more. All his stuff was about rapping.
And then
I'm just talking about a guy that ain't a rapper, right? That's
I
not.
was in the hood. I was in the
Yeah,
street.
I was in the hood.
and I seen some footage with Lunch Meat from Christian Mafia.
Yeah.
He not a rapper.
Lunch. Yeah, I remember that.
And that footage is so it looked dated.
Yeah,
Like,
It's a lot of, but I was creating content.
so you mean consistently on the internet?
No, I was creating content.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? People didn't even know what content was then. I was a writer.
yeah,
I wrote. How many articles do you think I wrote for Street Gangs? I used to write monthly.
I was trying to look him up right now, but if you go to streetgangs.com and just type in Madd Ronald or Ronald Chapman, some of these articles are going to pop up from the early 2000s.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But the thing about it was that there was no Android, there was no iOS, there was no iPhones, there was no instant access to the internet. We couldn't pull the computer out of our pocket back then. Because nowadays, dudes is doing online now. You got guys that are online, they just pulling their phones out. Boom, pay your phone bill, you can get on the internet. Back in them days, it was hard, man.
Madd Ronald, bro. They let any crackhead with a phone and that could make a Gmail account get a YouTube channel, and it's irritating.
Now, check this out. I just found an article Ronald wrote July 1st, 2005. My Side of the Racial Divide, Part 2.
Oh, yeah.
That's 2005. This is before high-speed internet.
So,
in fact,
so
YouTube,
that's part 2. When did part 1 come out then?
either early 05 or 04.
Huh, okay.
Yeah, and you used to write some of these articles at my desk in the office, right?
I
Yeah,
sit in the office and I write.
yeah.
Okay,
literally
Madd Ronald pioneered some shit.
Yeah, so we're talking about 02,
Yeah,
03,
we're talking
04.
about, but see, this is the thing. We're talking about, once again, before Android.
Right.
The Android revolutionized the world because now everything we saw on our PCs, we had in our pocket.
Check this out. November 30, 2004, Guns Don't Kill, People Kill by Ronald Chapman for streetgangs.com.
That's actual factual right there.
I'm
too.
looking at it right now. This has
I
been...
used to, no, here you go. I'm gonna tell you. I'm a one up. You remember this? MaddRonald.com.
Oh, yeah.
And this is before social media. MaddRonald.com went up to about 100,000 views. Back then, I'm talking about.
Hey, we can look. I'm going back even further.
3, I think.
Look, May 31st, 2003, The Power of Words, Madd Ronald. 2003.
Yeah.
This is there was no YouTube in 2003.
There was no YouTube, right?
Yeah.
There was no YouTube in 2003. That's why I understand exactly what you mean.
Yeah. So in terms of a guy from LA from a reputable hood posting on the internet regularly, I don't think anybody predates Madd Ronald.
So people that's from different states that really study this gang thing, interested into our culture, that's what they looking at. Shit like that, the literature.
Hey, people were reaching out to Ronald. Remember the girl that wrote the book?
Yeah.
From she was
Oregon.
From Oregon, yeah. Then you hooked up with the blood from New Jersey.
Yeah, I went and lived in New York and New Jersey.
Oh yeah, you went to Rochester. There's all kind of things.
I lived out there for 2 years. I lived in New York for 2 years and New Jersey.
Yeah,
I lived in upstate New York and I lived in Newark, New Jersey for 2 years.
And then I got interviews with Ronald that go back to this time period. You know,
but the thing about it was it ain't the point of the interviews and the pictures. I was creating content.
yeah.
And that's the thing. Gang members weren't creating content back then. You see what I'm saying? At that point in time, when YouTube opened up, there was one thing when everybody realized that you can get on YouTube and you can post immediately. That was one thing. But when people started coming to the realization that you can get sponsorship and get ad money and all that other stuff, that's a whole nother level.
All right, listen to this. Who were the first 2 people that I put on my YouTube channel in 06. The first 2 people I put on my YouTube channel, Munchie B, in 06.
Was Monster Kody one?
Nah, he wasn't one. One of them is in the room right here.
I wasn't gonna say him because I already figured it's Madd Ronnie and
Madd Ronald, not to get confused with Madd Ronnie from 60s.
Yeah, Madd Ronald.
And the other one is a Resting in Peace.
Nipsey Hussle.
Nah,
Jimbo.
nah.
Cause you had Nipsey, or you had Nipsey early in his career.
I did Nipsey in 09.
09.
Yeah, I did Nipsey in 09. But in 06, it was Madd Ronald. I put a Madd Ronald clip up, and I put a T. Rodgers clip up.
Oh, T. Rodgers.
Yeah.
Okay, long live T. Rodgers.
That's right. I remember when
You was with me.
I was when we went to T. Rodgers.
Yeah.
When we went over to T. Rodgers' house. I was there.
Yeah, you was with me when we went to the jungles and did that.
And he
Yeah.
was talking about Coco when he started the Blackstones, and he said he went to Coco with them. They said, "Nah, we don't want to be Blackstones. We gonna be neighborhoods."
Yeah.
Hey, so all right.
And real quick before you go, Munchie, not too many people could put a camera in front of T. Rodgers. You know how hard it is to put a camera in front of T. Rodgers? And then as the years went further, it really became more difficult.
T was interesting to me though, man.
But real quick, go ahead, Munchie. What was you gonna say?
Not content wise, but I guess documenting did his book or whatever. Marsha Kody, and then they did specials and interviews. They went inside the prison, interviewed him.
Yeah, because he wrote that book in '93.
Right. And then, I seen when they went inside the prison and they interviewed him.
Yeah.
And then, you know what I mean? So his shit was documented, but he wasn't putting out no content. So content-wise,
And that was pre-internet.
man,
Right,
Ronald got it.
That was text though. That wasn't.
Yeah, that's why I said
internet.
literature.
That was text.
That was.
I mean, not text like text. I mean text like on paper.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That was pre-internet.
I read Master Cody's book, and that was a good book to me, man. I read his book and his writing and said that book was really written well, but at the same time, I be looking and saying the crazy thing to me is that the people don't understand their power and they don't understand who they are and their messages because we get so stuck in the bullshit of the past that we don't realize that there's a calling. If you write a book, man, and you can go articulate this lifestyle, but then you can also give us a pathway out of this to the other side, back to safety and back to have a means and a way to be able to look out for the community and advocate for safety, then that right there is a great thing. And when you look at someone like Monster Kody, I know that he talked about the history in his life and the war stories and all of that there, but could you imagine what effect he might have had in gang intervention if he would have really had a voice in something like that?
Well, his issue was he was addicted.
I know.
Yeah, and if
That's why I say he didn't know his he didn't know his greatness.
bro was intelligent.
Man, he made murder sound beautiful.
Yeah, but he didn't.
No, for real.
He didn't know his greatness, and see that's what I mean about that. Because with a lot of people in the streets, man, I hate this about the streets. That a lot of people that are talented were dumbed down in order to be around a bunch of ignorant people. You got some smart, intelligent people, man, that want to be around a bunch of dummies, so they can't demonstrate how smart they are. You got dudes you got rappers that might have went to college, but they rapping like they've been in prison.
Yeah.
Because they want to fit in. People got to be comfortable being themselves. But at the same time, our leadership comes from the streets now. Because the most powerful thing in the world, I ain't going to say in the world, the most powerful thing that I've seen in the United States of America, I think in the fastest growing movement is the Bloods and the Crips. And I think that the leadership is coming from there because the evolution of thought and consciousness is starting to develop now because we have intervention. And from the ranks of this here, you might have your next Martin Luther Kings or your next Malcolm X's because the soldiers themselves become the officers and the officers become the representatives. And the representatives become the politicians. And those are the people that create the peace because those are the people that create the treaties and accords. But you have to have an understanding of your ability to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? If I have so much influence, I can influence life or I can influence death. You see what I'm saying? But a person that has to realize that they have that ability because a lot of us have that within us and we have greatness and don't even have understanding of how much greatness we possess.
Now, you just mentioned intervention, and I met T. Rodgers when I was at Dorsey High School in 1988, and he was already, I think he's one of the first gang interventionists.
First one I met.
I know you probably met T. Rodgers before I did because you've been around longer.
I knew T. Rodgers since I was about 11 or 12.
Damn.
T. Rodgers is the first gang member I ever saw on TV.
Wait, so you knew T. Rodgers in the late 70s or early 80s?
I used to hang with the Blackstones. 20s and Blackstones was real tight back in the day. We was really tight.
Yeah.
They used to be rolling 20 Blackstones years back. before 21st.
Yeah, and I used to hear Lil Bop say NHBPS.
Yeah. Well, we in reality when we used to be on Washington, because remember now we used to also overlap. That our community started on that side of the freeway, and everybody used to be on Washington. Everybody went to Mount Vernon Junior High School. In some families, you might have had the same way I spoke of the Hooper family. Where I said one brother might have been from family and one brother might have been from neighborhood. It was like that on that end too. Because to this day, right now, you might have a family where you might have one brother that's a Blackstone and one brother that's 20. You know what I mean? Because of our close proximity and our close associations. You know what I'm saying? But T. Rodgers, I met T, man, I was probably about 11 or 12, man. And T was interesting to me because of the fact that T was the first gang intervention person I've ever met. I was on television with T. When I was 14 years old, T was working at a program called Say Yes.
I remember that.
Me and White Boy Dre from the Jungle were on TV with him. And I ain't know this was so long ago, man. I always wondered whatever happened to that footage right there. And T came and picked me up. That's when it was going down too. It was real serious. And T came and got me one day, and he said, man, I want you to come. I want to take you somewhere. And he said, yeah, man, come. He said, I'm gonna come and get you this and this. He said, I've been looking for you, but I didn't want to knock on your door because it was wartime and there was a lot going on. He said, I didn't want to knock on your door. So I said, okay, cool. He came and got me. And him and he picked up White Boy Dre, and they came and got and he took us. I forget where. No, as a matter of fact, the interview took place down off of Crenshaw in 39th. The plaza where Say Yes was at, if I'm not mistaken, was by the Sentinel behind there. You know that back street off of Crenshaw? You know where the Sentinel was at, right?
Yeah, you're talking about, that's Bronson.
That street back there where they got the plaza, backside of the plaza.
That'd be Bronson and 39th.
That's where Say Yes was at back there.
Oh, in the back.
In the backside of the plaza back there. I remember because we did the interview. We went there and did the interview. And I learned a lot from T, man. T was like a mentor to me, man. When I was growing up, T was somebody, because, my thing dealing with, especially like me dealing with them, I never had a separation dealing with the city because of the fact that all of them, I've been around a lot of them before everybody was even claiming all this stuff. You know what I mean? And we was friends back then, and we all remain friends to this day. But T was somebody, man, that was articulate because of the fact that T was an actor. Do you know I ain't never seen, I'm in the streets. I'm just now getting in the streets. T's acting. T was in, with Jim Brown. T was in, I think the movie Crack House with Jim Brown.
He was in Colors also.
He was in Colors too. Yeah. He was acting. He was really, really doing this. I was somebody that was impressed by it. I ain't never, in the streets, the most I could see is prison and jail. That was somebody that had a vision. He had to have a great imagination in order to be able to put himself there because he had to have visualize himself doing these things.
He was on an episode of 21 Jump Street, an old show from the 80s. One day I'm watching it, and I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
That's T. Rodgers.
Yeah.
So yeah, we all kind of looked up to T. Rodgers.
T. Rodgers was a mentor. He was a great mentor. You know what I mean? When I was coming up, T. Rodgers was, and I'm gonna tell you, man, the one thing about T that I can honestly say, I ain't never got no negative information out of T. I know T. I know T was with the business and with what he was and how it went, and you know what I mean. And I know his history and everything with all this here, right? But I ain't never got. If T was a person, I never heard him speak anything like negative, like some gangbanging, like go do this, go do that, y'all. I ain't never heard him speak like that.
Nah, even when he got indicted in that stupid bullshit ass Blackstone indictment,
Cold Stone.
Yeah, it was just him. It was a girl kept on asking him, I need a gun, T, I need a gun. And he's like, why you need a gun? What you need a gun? And he finally gives an, all right, I'll get you a gun. She was wired.
Right.
She was wired by the feds.
Right.
So it's kind of entrapment.
It was kind of entrapment.
That's what I'm about to ask. Like, man, once somebody is like reluctant, like, you know what I'm saying, then he finally give in. It's like you begging, so that's entrapment.
Yeah, but hey, he ended up, I worked on his case. We ended up getting him a good deal. We got him, he pled guilty to 4, and they were going to let him out in 1 if everything was cool. And he came home in, I think, 1.
Right.
Yeah,
so
that was a real, and the prosecutor on that case was a girl I went to USC with.
Oh, that's fascinating.
So we would talk, and she would tell me, T. Rodgers is the leader of the Jungles. And I'm like, I grew up with T. Rodgers. T. Rodgers ain't the leader of the Jungles.
Right.
So I'm having this debate with the prosecutor, a sister that I went to USC with, and we're going back and forth about T. Rodgers.
That's the vilification.
Exactly. She was doing
media and law enforcement.
She was doing the exact same thing that T. Rodgers.
That's the vilification.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. And now watch this. I'm gonna show you something about this. When they do an indictment, the RICO or any of these other gang indictments right here,
Yeah.
they got to make you the worst. They got to make
you become the boogeyman.
They got to make you the boogeyman because you know why? Now watch this one. Do you know why? Because they don't indict punks. They don't make indictments for you. Ain't seen no motherfucker. They ain't indicted not one person on the RICO and said, yeah, he's the softest dude around and this and this and this.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? They got to make you that because of the fact that when that jury pool is looking at you, they got to look at you and they have to see this horrible person. They want them to see the tail and they want them to see the horns coming out your head.
Well, it turns out the boogeyman T. Rodgers only did 1 year. So how much of a boogeyman was he? He only did a year. You know.
Right, but I'm just saying you know how they play though.
And they're trying to give you 20,
they're
right?
Give me 40.
They were trying to give you 40.
RICO carried 20 years per count. I had 2 counts of the RICO. My deal they first offered me was 18 years. I turned it down. I said, man, I ain't even committed no crimes. I ain't taking no 18 years.
Yeah.
The only reason I took a 5-year deal. And the only reason I took that, I just took 5 years because I could see the other side of it. That's the only reason I could see 5 years. If I would have went into double digits, man, I would have died in prison.
And you was already in there for about 2 years when you took that deal? So
I was already in for 2.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? If I would have messed with that 40 years, I'd have died in prison because I'm 57 right now. So imagine I got 30 more years left, if that. You know what I'm saying? So myself personally, you know, I see, like I say once again, how the media and law enforcement works. That's the same as, watch this. Here's a historical piece, and you heard this before. Originally, the urban subculture groups of Los Angeles, I'll call them, didn't call themselves gangs. Because think about this here. Those that came before the influence of the gangs were the Black Panther Party and the revolutionary movements of the 60s, right? This is what the black community looked forward to, right? As time progressed in the reconstruction of these groups, when they started taking on their own agendas with no agenda, in other words, like every night a gang, the dudes go out and do something, commit a crime, rob somebody or something, unorganized crimes, right? Over the course of time, the media and law enforcement started labeling the word gangs.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I was a kid in the 70s, if you said like our homies, you couldn't say you was a member of you said a gang, that was disrespect. Because of the fact that this is not what people look to. You know what I mean? This is not what people look to. They didn't look to the gang structure. They looked to, you know what I mean, whatever it was. Because they was really a lot of people trying to just emulate and create something for protection or emulate what was already around. A lot of people wanted to look like the Panthers, wanted to be a Panther, couldn't be a Panther, so you had to get your own group. You know what I mean? But at the same time, the thing I'm saying is that initially in the beginning, the initial groups of people that were the founders in the 70s, like the early 70s or so, their concepts wasn't to the gang concept. I can't speak for the Crips, but I know that my OG homeboys back in them days used to use the word gang. That was disrespectful. They would say the set. Mm-hmm. But we wouldn't say the gang.
Yeah.
The gang was something given to us, once again, by the law enforcement and by the media.
In the 80s, everybody used to say, what set you from?
Right.
They didn't say, what gang you from?
Right. When I was
I don't think I ever heard anybody say, what gang you from?
All of that came, there was an evolution, once again, the evolution. Because also there was the independence of all the different groups that existed inside of Los Angeles that weren't Crips. And at the same time, there was a lot of camaraderie because of the fact that everybody had common enemies. And the common enemies were the Crips, because the Crips felt if you weren't a Crip, you were an enemy to the Crips. So the groups themselves that did not become Crips, because that's like saying like in the 20s. I'm going to give you a fine example of what I mean. In the 20s, there was Blood Alley that started in the 50s. In 1950, there's Blood Alley. Now, by the time the Crips developed, right, Blood Alley had already been around somewhere in the area of about 20 years. Blood Alley these was grown-ass men. Some of these dudes grown-ass men. You got to remember, the founding members of the Crips back in them days, they was like, I read in Tookie's book, he said they was 17 years old when they started the Crips.
Yeah. I think Raymond was actually 16.
Something like that. I read Tookie's book, and he said they was something like 17 years old or so when they started the Crips. In our community, there were already old dudes here from the prior generations of Blood Alley. So there was no way to dominate this community, because in reality, This community was established. The same with a lot of these other groups that existed before all of the gang conflict and were independents. Because Neighborhood, it wasn't an NHB, it was an N and an H.
It was just N-Hood, right?
N-Hood.
Yeah.
It was N-Hood or N-H, right? But the thing I'm saying, it wasn't a B. Just like a lot of other groups didn't have B's on them. They existed as the groups they were. Then at the same time, when it became that alignment, there was at one point in time somewhere, there was an alignment. When I say there was an alignment, what I mean is that everybody that didn't like the Crips ended up being Bloods.
What year? I always ask people this, and I don't
Call
think,
them the antis.
yeah, I don't think anyone really knows when this happened. OG Frog from Bounty Hunter talks about it. But what year would you say that alignment under the B card fell in together?
From community to community, it's going to
73.
be a difference.
Yeah.
From community to community, it's going to be a difference because the founding of these groups and the alignment didn't happen at the same time. It's
Correct.
not. It wasn't 2025 where you come into the inception of a group and then you say, okay, I'm gonna line myself up with these people, or I'm gonna line myself up with these people. You know what I mean? So from community to community, it varied and it differed. At the same time, I would say that if we look at this here from a perspective of years, I would say that. I'm trying to think, man, in my head now, because I remember.
I know the Inglewood families put the B on it in like 74. Because
No. This is the thing, though.
The big homie Nasty Ed came home and put the B at the end of Inglewood families.
But no. But listen to what I'm saying when I say that. Through the beef with the Crips, there was establishment of our groups. But our groups were the groups they were, and they just beefed with the Crips. Like IF wasn't IFG, it was IF. No, I'm talking about when I'm in my day.
Okay.
It was IF. It wasn't IFG or IFGB. It was IF.
Right.
Because the independence of IF was in Inglewood.
Right.
Just like we was Neighborhood. And the independence of Neighborhood was in the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
You got a lot of groups. Black Peace Stone was not CSB and JSB. It was BPS. You see what I'm saying? But this represented the independence of these groups initially.
And then years ago, the Denver Lanes were just
Denver Lane Boys.
Right.
Yeah.
Denver Lane Boys,
Right.
Athens Park Boys.
Athens
Right,
Park. Yeah.
right.
Over the green jackets.
Right, but the thing I'm saying, though, see, that's before my time there, but the thing I'm saying, though, is that when you talk about it in this fashion, right, all in all, it was those that didn't get along with these guys, because Sun Tzu says the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Those that didn't get along with these guys, we running. You could be downtown LA. You run into some dudes down there with red flags in their pockets. Where y'all from, man? We from we from over. Oh, we all getting together, kicking it. We all because we get along because we know that we got to fight them.
Hey, man, you know what I hate, man? I hate this thing that community revolution and progress. That's bullshit.
That came after.
I don't know nothing about that.
That's cap. And
I don't know nothing. I ain't never heard that in the streets. I don't know nothing about that.
Crips was bullies going up to schools, installing fear, and going in people's neighborhoods and installing fear in people trying to make them turn Crip, or they say Tucky be like Crip or no.
Right.
Like,
That was
you
in
know,
the book. I read that in his book.
You know what I'm saying? To even just pull up and try to ship people out of their jackets and all that little shit. So like to make it seem like, oh, we did this for our community. All that is bullshit. And I hate that. I hate that narrative to make these dudes seem like superheroes.
Nah.
And that ain't the case.
I'm gonna share something with you though that I heard once. I heard that when Rosie Greer had something going on with the Crips when he was trying to pull something together,
Yeah.
something with some politicians
Around the mid-'70s.
And I heard that's where that community revolution in progress came.
Yeah, it came under Tom Bradley because they was trying to take a proposal to Tom Bradley, Rosie Greer, and all these other gang interventionists. I guess Rosie Greer would predate Jim Brown as a gang interventionist.
Yeah.
So yeah, they wanted to take a proposal to Tom Bradley, and they came up with this. CRIP stands for. First was Community Revolution in Progress. The city said we don't like revolution, so it became Community Response in Progress or something. But Munchie, that was created after the fact to get some money,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Some
government funding to do some gang intervention, whether it was Rosie Greer and Tom Bradley.
But I just get sick of watching these.
In Blu-ray's Black Redemption, Tookie Williams don't acknowledge Community Revolution in Progress because he said he didn't mess with Rosie Greer. He said he didn't even. Rosie Greer tried to set something up and he didn't even show up.
Yeah, because he was a Shermhead back then. He wasn't messing with none of that stuff.
Yeah,
yeah.
I just don't like all these documentaries and they act like they're just, you know what I'm saying, just protecting the
No,
neighborhood
wait,
and all that. It's BS.
Raymond Cook was one of the dudes. He goes by the name Danifu. He was one of the dudes that helped write, some of the stuff for the city, with Tom Bradley, Rosie Greer,
Right.
And he's on Facebook. Man, I've been wanting to interview him to really help, tell that history.
Right.
This was like 74, 75.
Right. And see now, like me, man, I was from the set, man, in 76. So it's like a lot of the history that people speak of, a lot of this I remember.
Now, when you, in 76, was the B already put on there?
No, it wasn't.
Not yet.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We put the B on it.
Yeah.
That first generation didn't put the B on it. And I had an interesting conversation once with a homie.
So when did the B get put on NHB then?
Between 78 and 80.
Okay.
But NHB was Bloods already though. Because once again,
Based on the allies, the alignment.
right, because we fucked with Inglewood and we fucked with the jungle in Harvard Park and the villains and we fucked with outlaws and we fucked with everybody that they didn't fuck with because we didn't fuck with them. You know what I mean? Because see, the thing about it was that, and this was the thing, even if you read Tookie's book, he says in the book, they was trying to blanket the communities. They was trying to dominate the communities. Those that resisted ended up being oppositions.
Mm-hmm.
That's why that's why it ain't that many blood sets.
Yeah.
Because now, had it not been for the Crips, a lot of the original gangs would have still been around, but they got absorbed. You see what I'm saying? But at the same time, see, like my recollection of it is crazy because of the fact that I remember back the 70s and it was different. I remember people got along. I remember when Bloods and Crips, it wasn't a situation of the murder rate wasn't like it was.
When did the rivalry with the Harlem 30s Crips really kick off? If you remember that.
20s and 30s ain't never got along.
Never.
I mean, as a collective, as selectively as the groups they are, they never got along. You know what I mean? Because once again, the 20s wasn't Crips.
Yeah, but it wasn't an all out war in the 70s.
They didn't, but they never got along though. But at the same time, it escalated, and that's like everywhere else. It escalated over the course of time. Then when crack came in, it just was too much because of the fact now everybody got hundreds of thousands of dollars and machine guns and tons of that government cocaine that was being used to finance the war in Central America. You know what I mean? Ronald Reagan and George Bush made sure that we had plenty of guns and plenty of cocaine, and they made sure that they agitated well enough to make sure that, you know what I mean? Because I look at all that right now today and say that was such a great preconceived plan that right now we've relinquished all of our real estate. We done killed off a great majority of our own population. But the manipulation came from them because they gave us the tools. We don't have passports, so how can we be the ones flying metric tons of cocaine into South Central LA and then flying money back out to finance the Contras against the fight the Sandinistas? You know what I'm saying? At the same time, you know what I mean, that the AK-47, the Russian, what is it? The automatic Krishnikov made in 1947. This is a Russian assault rifle, and I ain't got a passport, man. I don't know nobody with a passport, man. You know what I'm saying? So for all that to get here, man, it took a whole lot of trouble for it to get here. And somebody made sure it arrived on time, and they still keeping it coming.
Let me tell you a crazy story. I used to buy speakers and audio stuff out of the recycler back in the day. Remember the recycler?
I used to know the recycler.
So one day I'm looking for some 12-inch woofers.
Right.
So I see an ad in the recycler. It's a guy on Venice, like Venice and Hoover. He got some speakers. So I drive over there. It's actually an office building with no name on the front. I go in there, and there's a bunch of speakers in the front, but behind the speakers, it's guns, rifles, AK-47s, and it was a brother back there. I'm like, what kind of place is this? He said, hey, if you know anybody that wants to buy guns and rifles, let them know. So I bought the speakers. I tell Travion, hey, there's this place that pretends to sell speakers, but when you go there, it's a gun store. Trey went over there and bought some shit up, and it blew my mind away. I'm thinking I'm going to a speaker store,
Right.
And it was really a gun store.
But that's the government.
And it was an underground. It wasn't like you could just buy the guns.
Well, watch this. You don't know. For all you know, that dude you talking to might have been a government agent.
Hey, I had no idea.
But remember now, remember that the agitators are in the streets. They've been here forever. You know what I mean? If you really think about it, because of the fact that now, especially in this day and age, because now they don't have to kill us with the drugs. They ain't got to kill us with the guns. Now all they got to do is turn us on each other. Because they done made us distrust each other so much. They done implemented so much chaos. They done implemented so much agitation that now it don't take nothing. I mean, before the red and the blue thing was one thing and it was tolerable to some extent. But when they came in now, you shoot, we ain't nothing tolerable now, because if you shoot the homie with an AK-47 25 times and you blow his arms and his legs off, ain't no coming back from that, because we want to do the same thing. That's the difference from having a fight and somebody got beat up and went to the hospital and maybe got patched up at home or something. And I say it like that simply because of the fact that that's the level of escalation that came once the government came. I remember being young, when somebody might have got beat up and got hurt, that was it. But at the crack, man, you hear about, man, they shot 15 people out here and all this other stuff with a gun that shot 150 times, a fully auto, and stuff that didn't exist back then.
It's crazy. You brought up Tookie Book. What is it? Blue Rage Black Redemption, right?
Blue Rage Black Redemption.
All right, then you brought up Blood Alley earlier, and you said these gangs pre-existed the Crips, right?
Right.
So I noticed in Tookie Book, and he was talking about the West Side Crips was going at it with my G homies before it was Inglewood. It was the chain gang, but they said they go over there fighting, but the homies it be pistol play because they was much older.
Right.
Because like before it was Crips, like the homies was already there, so they was basically teenagers and kids, and they going at it with these adults.
You understand exactly what I was saying.
Right.
The community was already established, and when these weren't in your community, that was established, or the guys in your community were already established. They were older than these guys.
Right.
That's exactly what I mean. That's exactly like I was speaking like how Blood Alley.
No. I'm picking up what you putting down.
Right, because and this is the fascinating thing to me. I had a conversation with the homie about Blood Alley, right? And he told me, we was having a conversation. He blew me away with this, and I had to come to that realization. He said Blood Alley. He said Blood Alley wasn't Bloods, and it kind of got me there.
Yeah. It was because there was a lot of squabbling and crazy stuff happening on that street.
No.
A lot of blood was spilled?
No.
No?
The name of Blood Alley because of the fact that someone was killed, and they found 2 bodies in the alley over there off 20th.
Yeah.
By Cordova and Normandy back that way, and that's what Blood Alley got its name from. But it made sense when he said Blood Alley wasn't Bloods because of the fact that it predate Blood and Crip. It wasn't no Crips, it wasn't no Bloods.
Exactly.
So they was just an independent standalone gang.
And it's just
group.
It's
I ain't gonna say gang. I'm gonna say an independent group.
Now I don't know if it's coincidental that Blood became the identity.
It became a coincidence.
Or did Blood Alley inspire the name later?
I don't think.
I think it was a coincidence.
Yeah, I agree. It's a coincidence.
I think the thing about it basically was the fact that over the course of time, by Blood Alley being the predecessor and already having established the ground, and by us not being blanketed or being absorbed.
Now, have you ever heard that the Bloodstone villains were going by Bloodstone because there was a music group, or?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I know what you're talking about.
I think they were Bloodstone before
they made this flow through
before
the
the
sky.
Blood Gang came out.
How that's the Bloodstone sing "Flow Through the Sky" on a Natural High.
That song came out like '73 or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's probably, I don't know myself personally. That is a good question that I might have to ask somebody.
Because that's another hood that has the word blood in it.
Right.
But it might not have meant the Blood Gang. It just might have been like Blood Alley.
Right. Well, I don't know because I heard they were villains.
Yeah.
Bloodstone might have came later. I don't know. But like I say, though, it's interesting, though, because of the fact that when you look at this, because also I got to look at how the evolution of this now takes us from then to now where we at now, because there was no ideas or no thoughts put into it. See, the one thing I always tripped off about gangbanging is that, and somebody told me this, Denver Bam told me this here, the homie from Neverland told me this once. And we was doing intervention. We was at our training for the Los Angeles Mayor's Office of Gang Reduction Youth Development. And Bam told us, he said, and it made sense. He said, man, this was all developed by a bunch of adolescents. There was no agenda for a 40 or 50-year-old man in this. This was created by a bunch of kids that just had too much time on their hands. And as we grow older, because I've grown out of place more than once. And then I started looking around and I started evaluating life. And I'm starting looking at this and I'm saying, there's no other tier. Now there's another tier. And you want to know what that tier is? Gang intervention is the tier. Because that's for homies that have come out of prison. That's for homies that want to do something better. That's for homies that are just trying to take care of their families, feed themselves, and save other people's lives. You understand what I mean? But you can still be involved.
Let me ask you. You mentioned you knew Bear Claw through gang intervention, through GRYD, and there's been a lot of talk about GRYD. I would say a lot of talk by people who are not knowledgeable.
Oh, let's talk about GRYD.
They're not well versed. They're not educated in it. But there's this. The internet is running away with this rumor, this belief that GRYD is somehow a bunch of gang members working for the police.
Let me share with you. I'm gonna share with you. First, let me share my history with GRYD. I worked for GRYD from 2015 till 2018. I was a GRYD worker. I was employed by Volunteers of America through the Los Angeles Mayor's Office of Gang Reduction and Youth Development. Now, in order to go to GRYD, right, you have to go to what is called the Los Angeles Violence Intervention Training Academy, La Vida. That's at the Urban Peace Institute, right? They're going to vet you. And they did this to me. This is how GRYD works. Because I explain first how they vetted me. We went in the room. I go in the room. There's all these dudes in here. These are like OGs, and these are all reformed members, right? Go in the room. The homie, what you call it, PP, chapter 2, asked me, he says, when do you call the police on a gang member? This is the question he asked me. When do you call the police on a gang member? How would you answer that, Munchie?
When do I call the police on a gang member? I don't. I believe I could de-escalate the situation myself. You know what I'm saying? If the gang maker from my community, especially, I feel I could de-escalate it.
Okay. You want to know how I answered that question?
I mean, if he dead, we calling the paramedics, right?
Right. But you want to know how I answered that question?
Yeah.
What I said was, if a gang member shot a child, if he shot a little kid, I will go to his homies and make them aware of the situation and the consequences and let them take care of it however they wish.
Right.
He said, that's a good answer. He said, you know what happened if you would have said you would call the police on a gang member? I said, no. He said, you wouldn't be in here.
Now, this is coming from PP.
PP from GRYD.
Q102, right?
Yeah.
OG
chapter 2. Chapter 2 executive director, I think he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gerald Cavett.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said you wouldn't be in there. Because see, GRYD, you can't compromise the reputation of GRYD simply because of the fact that GRYD works with hardcore gang members.
Now, have you heard a lot of this misinformation about GRYD on the internet since you've been home?
I was hearing it when I was in jail.
Okay.
But that's all because people don't know. You don't know that. Okay, this is the interaction with GRYD. I work with GRYD, and I had to deal with the police and all this here, right? Let me explain to you about GRYD. And this is one thing I've heard about GRYD that people always talked about too. Okay, this is GRYD's interaction with law enforcement, right? I ain't gonna say first responder. I'm gonna call myself a second responder, right? I say a second responder because I'm the GRYD worker. If someone gets killed in my community and it's a gang-related murder, I gotta come to that scene. I gotta talk to the homies. I got to go to the police. I got to get the report and find out what's going on. I got to call my supervisor, let him know what's going on. I got to make contact with the family. I got to offer the family services like victim services and stuff like that there, right? Now, I got to do a report in the morning. There's a report I got to turn in the morning, right? I do got to write reports, but watch this. Because this is what I heard on the internet. People say, oh, you got to write reports. Oh, you write reports for and this and this and this, right? This is how the report thing go. You write a report, but you got to wait until you get the police report before you write your report. The police don't write their report based on your information. You write your report based on their information because their information is based on the facts. They're the ones on the other side of the yellow tape. You see what I'm saying? I can't write a report and tell you nothing on this side of the yellow tape when the crime scene is over there. You feel what I'm saying? And the one thing about GRYD that I respected the way that they protected their reputations because of the fact that one thing, like I say, when I say the conversation, we would say like somebody get killed or something, right? Now, GRYD ain't finna be out here doing no investigating, trying to find out who did the murder. You know what GRYD gonna do? They want to know who didn't do the murder so that we can go back and share the information with our people and let them know don't go through there shooting no innocent people that ain't got nothing to do with nothing. You see what I'm saying? That's the level of GRYD. That's what GRYD does. I can't speak for individuals, but I know how I did my job, right? and I know how I was taught. And these were the people. When I went to Levita, this is the way that I was educated. In Levita, oh man, wait, hold on. Michael Rayan, rest in peace. Mike died, but he was one of our facilitators. A cool dude, Mexican dude, right? And in GRYD, Mike had a saying that was so funny to me, man. Mike would say, "This ain't no bank and ain't no tellers in here." Hey, for real, that's what he would tell us. But see, they make sure that they push that narrative to you.
Right.
We have a reputation to protect. We got people coming out of prison. We working with people on death row. You see what I'm saying? We working with people that's in jail for gang-related murders. We writing letters for people that's going to court. We in the community providing all the services in the world that we can provide. We helping people get in school. I done got people jobs through GRYD, working with GRYD. I done got people in Job Corps. I done got people in school. I done got people, a lot of people I done got off the streets. You know what I'm saying? Simply, but the number one thing about that was the fact that, and I'm going to be realistic with you, the thing that aided me and helped me to be able to get people off the streets was first and foremost my own life experiences, because the people that I'm dealing with are in my community, and GRYD works like that, and they put you in your own community. So if I'm in the streets and I'm telling you about the life, and I'm telling you this, that you don't need to be here, and I'm telling you that I can do something better, I'm better because I'm the dude that came from that same street you own. I'm that dude that been in that same prison you in, been in that same jail you been in. I'm not the academic. I'm not the dude that came from college just exercising theoretical knowledge on you. I'm the dude that's practical because I've been in it right there, and I know right where you at. So I can meet you where you at, and I can provide assistance in order to provide whatever resources and services I need to provide for you.
All right, Madd Ronald.
Madd Ronald.
You get that a lot, man?
Madd Ronnie?
Yeah.
I think it's because Madd Ronnie recently died, so
Right.
his name has been...
No, but do you be getting that? Like, people be Madd Ronnie, you sometimes?
No, because on my side of town, everybody know Madd Ronald.
Right. All right, but look, all right, as of recently, you know what I'm saying? You got these podcasters from jail.
Yes, sir.
So this is dude, he got some type of underlying issue with me, whatever. So his thing, he said, Munchie B went to a GRYD meeting and brung up the whoop-de-whoop, his YouTube channel, right? Now, I'm like, I don't know what sense that will make, and I've never been to a GRYD meeting in my life, right?
Right.
But you know, through Skip, I became an ambassador.
Right.
So I was like, damn, I ain't got nothing to explain, but the city of Inglewood don't even believe in GRYD. Right. So, and I'm from Inglewood. Right. So I'm like, okay, that idiot. Right. And then I know from the meetings I have been to, as far as ambassadors, they tell you not to cross the tape.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
They tell you how to deal with certain situations while you don't have to contact the police. Like you got a homie that's having a whack attack off some Sherm or something.
Right.
How you can contact the pep squad, you know what I'm saying, versus calling 911.
Right.
You know, 911 to get Spooky Johnson and probably air him out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He coming too aggressive.
Right.
And things like of that nature. So that this whole stigma with the GRYD thing about people telling. Because if I was part of GRYD, I'd get a little bit more chilly, I believe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then like what you described, like you said that the police report first, and then after that, I don't know nothing about that. Like I'm oblivious to that. So I guess that's when you reach like the GRYD level. But yeah, it's a gang of little misconceptions, and you know what I'm saying about like gang intervention and prevention or whatever. You know what I mean? But you know,
I'm gonna tell you something, man, and I'm gonna be real as I can be. It's 2025, man. You got grown-ass men out here just trying to advocate and hold on to some bullshit that means nothing. Motherfuckers is fighting for communities they don't own nothing in. I tell everybody, if you don't own a community, you ain't got no hood. You don't own no real estate, you ain't got a hood. But you got grown-ass men that have been failures all their motherfucking lives. Ain't been shit, but they hit the streets, they somebody, because in the streets you can be a successful failure. Motherfuckers in the streets can be that, but they want to fight to hold on to that because of the fact that if they let that go, then they got to assume their real lives and they got to assume responsibilities. And everybody don't. When you looking at the motherfuckers in the streets that's keeping the bullshit going, talking the shit about the people that's out here trying to do something and trying to make it better and trying to help people, and you hear motherfuckers talking down and talking against that there, evaluate that person's life and see how their priorities are because of the fact that you can't take care of the corner and home at the same time.
Yeah. Now, we don't really have a lot of GRYD people online defending GRYD, except Skip. Skip definitely try to clear the misconceptions.
Yeah.
Now that we got you clearing some misconceptions, but for the most part, the anti-GRYD voices on the internet outdo the people that understand what GRYD really is.
Hey, and another thing, man, I'm the last person the police want to work with, right? Because for one, they go be like, Munchie, he ain't changed. That's crap. He's acting. That's what they gonna say. They not gonna be with, like, let's say if I try to get a permit to do something, a Richard Hart event, some gang intervention, like, you know what I'm saying, in Inglewood, man, James Butts go, he ain't getting no permit. Not Munchie B. Like, it's not gonna work in my favor.
The police don't want to work with the gang members either, though.
The mayor of Inglewood ain't going to mess with
work. They don't want to work with GRYD. They don't want. You know that we threaten their job security. Do you know that the intervention workers? Can you imagine that the level of? Okay, let's say this. I was at the table in 2009, and I remember with the 30s, and we came up with an agreement of some sort to where y'all leave us alone, we'll leave y'all alone, and the shooting stopped, and it ain't been a murder since then, right? That was me and Skip and Monster and whoever else was in the room with us, and it was a bunch of 30s, right? And the thing about that is this here, man. When it comes down to all of this here, and we looking for everything what it is, right? You're going to always have people that's going to speak about what's going on, but they don't know what's going on. You don't know what's going on in the room with the real dudes because the real dudes is trying to get in the room. Ain't none of us that got history in this that have been through these prisons and these funerals and all this other stuff and that really, really, really got a moral compass, which every human being has somewhat of a moral compass. They can sit back at 35 and 40 years old and advocate the murder of a teenager in the streets just because he got on the wrong colored tennis shoes. Because when you get 30, 40, 50 years old, you also got kids and grandkids that same age just walking in the streets that might be wearing them same colored tennis shoes obliviously and not attached to nothing. So to save those lives, I mean, everybody got to do their part. And the thing about it is fascinating, like you saying, Munchie, I'm going to tell you something about that, Munchie. Keep this in mind always. And like I said a minute ago, an ounce of bad outweighs a ton of good always. People going to always talk. You know what I'm saying? You got people that's always going to be haters. You're going to have all that there. I learned keep moving forward because if you talking about me, you ain't doing nothing. I'm making moves while you talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you kind of missed a lot of the hater stuff on the internet, right? Or did you ever?
I don't worry about it. I don't care about it.
But did you ever get a bunch of haters on the internet in your DM or?
Not really. I never trip because I don't be on that. I don't be on the controversies.
Man, but I learned a lot of people just be wanting my spot.
But Munchie don't be doing nothing and got like 10 haters already.
But you're gonna have
I'm
that.
immune to it now, though.
You're gonna have that though. You got to remember, man. Either direct, indirect. Either they're gonna speak or they're gonna be quiet. But they're gonna exist. Yeah. You can't do nothing without the haters. They're there, man. You got to be. You know what I'm saying? The key objective to that. The key objective to that is this here. You can't glorify them and give them the shine. You can't take the time of day to be saying, oh man, I'm not gonna take 30 minutes a day to get on. If you get on the internet and speak on me for 2 minutes, I'm not gonna spend 30 minutes trying to justify myself.
Now I want to ask you about some other gang intervention work you did, because I remember, I don't know what year this was. This had to be like 02, maybe 01. You was doing an event at Lauren Miller Park, and you had Tony Muhammad pull up.
Yes.
And I didn't even understand your relationship with Tony Muhammad at the time, but it had to be pretty strong because he don't just pull up for anybody. Right. He came to Lauren Miller Park. What was that all about?
Well, the minister is like one of my mentors also. And this is that circle of people that just want to do good. We don't have to it ain't got to be a religious thing. But we black men, and we understand the plight of black people, and we got to understand the plight of black people in Los Angeles because of the fact that we in a crisis. The violence is ridiculous. So, all in all, me and the minister, I told what happened. I'm gonna tell you how that happened. I'm gonna give you the blow by blow on that.
I think that was your first annual piece.
Yeah, but let me give you the blow by blow on that there because it's an interesting story. One day I was listening to the radio, and I heard Steve Harvey speaking on the radio, and he said that they was going to be at Stop the Violence Foundation, and I was already a member of the Stop the Violence Foundation. You know, I graduated through the Stop the Violence Foundation in 01. So I was already a member of the foundation. I was already attending my meetings and going to classes there.
Now, was that Stop the Violence, Increase the Peace?
Yes.
Khalid Shaw
Khalid Shaw.
out of Inglewood.
Khalid and Naeem Shaw, yes.
Okay.
Perry on Crenshaw?
Yeah, Khalid and Naeem Shaw. So anyway, on that day, Steve Harvey said he was going to be up there. So Steve Harvey came. So I'm standing in the door of they're in a like a meeting room. I'm standing in the door of the meeting room because it's hot in the room and there's a lot of people in there. So I'm standing in the hallway and I'm standing here at the door because the air's on in the hallway because I'm trying to be cool while I'm in here, right? I don't want to go in the room with everybody because there ain't nobody in here yet. So I'm standing here and here come Minister Tony Muhammad with Steve Harvey and whoever the other guy was, like maybe security or something, right? So I'm standing there. I'm just minding my chilling. The minister walks up. And I said, Minister, how you doing, sir? He said, oh, Madd Ronald, what's up, man? You know, Minister, me and him was real cool. Minister always, you know what I mean? He greets me in a good way. Even I have the greatest respect for the Nation of Islam. I got the greatest respect for the FOI because they treat me with the greatest respect. I ran into him in Lancaster not too long ago, and I started talking to the dude, looked and said, man, ain't you Madd Ronald? Because they know my dealings with the minister. Plus, Lieutenant James Muhammad, you know, that's the homie. You know what I mean? That's twin. That's the homeboy. So anyway, Steve Harvey, Minister Tony coming through the door.
Are you talking about James from the East Side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Twin, James Muhammad, Lieutenant James Muhammad.
Yeah.
He says, he shake my hand. He said, Madd Ronald, what's up, man? You know, this and this and this and this. How you doing today, Minister? You know, this and this and this, right? And then he introduced me to Steve Harvey. He said, yeah, Brother Steve, this is Brother Madd Ronald right here. Steve Harvey was very humble. One thing, because my personal interaction with Steve Harvey, he was a very humble dude, very humble. I mean, to the utmost. I shook Steve Harvey's hand, and I was like, it's a pleasure to meet you, sir. He said, no, brother, the pleasure is all mine. You know, this, and this, right? So, you know, we chopping it up a little bit, you know what I mean? So then they go in the room. So I'm still standing in the doorway. So he walked in the room. You know how L.A. back then was on fire. There was so much killing going on. L.A. was on fire. And we was at this meeting. They were discussing the shooting. Master P was supposed to show. Master P came that day too. So we in the room, and Steve Harvey and Minister Tony walk in. They talking to everybody and this and this and this and this. Everybody's talking like these are the people that got like Steve Harvey has the answers to the problems. People don't have a realization. Steve Harvey's not from here. These problems are our problems and our responsibility to resolve, because these are our problems on our doorsteps. So anyway, everybody's talking like this and this and this and this. And they asked him a million questions, and somebody even said something about money one time. Steve Harvey was like, if I gave everybody $1 in this room, I'd be broke myself. You know what I mean? So that ain't the answer, and this and this. So I walk into the room, him and the minister, and somebody else is standing here, and they was talking like in the huddle. So I walk into the room, and I say, I walk into the huddle, into the circle they're in, with the Minister Tony and Steve Harvey and them. So I'm standing, I don't know if I was talking to Steve Harvey or if I was talking to Minister Tony. I said, I want to do an event in my community. They said, Steve Harvey looked at me and said, what? He said, you want to do an event? I said, yeah, I want to do an event in my community. I want to have a peace event in my community. I said, we've never had a peace event in the community. No one's ever done this before. Steve Harvey said, man, if you want to do something, you figure out what you want to do, put it together, get with the minister. I got your back. Don't worry about nothing. So I figured it out and I put it together. At that point in time, it was going crazy because it was just so funny. What made me want to do the event was I was in the neighborhood, and the little homie, I ran into him one morning. It was a lot going on. One morning, I'm in the hood, and I see the little homie, and the 30s just came through, and they just shot his car up with him in the car. I just happened to walk up. We looking at the car. I'm pulling bullet slugs. I'm putting slugs out the car. I took the slug out the car and kept it.
Was that the homie that got shot at the Golden Bird?
No.
Okay.
No. This is on 27th and LaSalle.
Okay.
When they used to be at the apartments right there, right? So the next day I come through, the next night, they come through here and they shot the whole block up. They shot everything, all the apartments, all the cars, everything, right? They shot everything up. Cars got busted windows, the security doors got holes in them, you know what I'm saying? So now I'm just tripping off of this. I just happened to I was walking through here, man, looking at the damage, and it was crazy to me because I seen a little kid standing in the door, behind the screen door, behind the bar door, in their door, right? But I'm looking at the bullet holes in the door that the kid is standing behind. It's a little baby, like about this tall. And I'm looking at the bullet holes in the security door that they're standing behind. And the mama is hollering, get out the door. get your ass out the doorway right now. Shut that door. You know what I'm saying? Mama's scared to death. They just shot the whole damn block up, right? In my mind, I came to the determination, these motherfuckers need some peace in their life. They don't know what it's like to even have peace. Motherfuckers don't even have a realization of what it's like to go to the park without even having to carry a gun. These motherfuckers live around the corner from the park and can't even take their kids to the park peacefully.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? These are the type of things that I was thinking about. And I said, man, I'm going to put something together. And I got with London, and I got with Lieutenant James. They helped me out heavily. They really, really assisted in that. That was just as much their thing as it was mine, to be realistic with you. I was just the face.
No, it was a successful event.
That's what I'm saying. But I was just the face. London and Lieutenant James, they really helped me out in that. They really, you know what I'm saying? Because of the fact they made a lot of contributions of time and effort and ideas and stuff like that there on what we was going to do. So anyway, I get with Lieutenant James. Hey, man, no, I went down to the mosque. I went down to the mosque 27. I called, and I went and I seen the minister. So me and the minister talking. I said, I know what I want to do, man, this and this and this and this. And I tell him what I want to do. He said, okay, let me get in touch with Steve, and I got you. Man, they got back with me about, man, I want to say not even a week later. Hey, man, you know this and this and this and this. You got the money, you got the date and this and this. And I said, okay, we got to get a park permit. And Lieutenant Tony came out, and he got us the park permit. Because you know the park permit's expensive.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Tony came out, and he got us the park permit. And, you know, we did everything we did. You know what I mean? Steve Harvey paid for everything. That day, Steve Harvey paid for that food. Steve Harvey paid for everything that took place that day. You see what I'm saying? And you know what I mean? I myself personally never got a chance to thank him for that, but that was really some good looking out, and I appreciated that because of the fact that wasn't for me, that was for the community. You know what I mean? And that was one of the first signs of there being some kind of hope. Because every day, see, I've been there all my life. I've been there since '76. I've been there since I was 8 years old. All I know is the violence. All I know is the violence. It's been happening I can't remember when it was peaceful.
Now, that inspired you to do it again. I think you did it maybe 2 or 3 more
I
times.
did it about 2 or 3 more times. I did it 2 more times, I think.
Do you ever feel like you want to do it again?
Yeah. Yeah. But it's now my okay, I have to rekindle my relationships with the Neighborhood Association because of the fact that I do have a relationship with the Neighborhood Association. And like me myself now, I'm at a point to where I was doing that for the hood. I've grown beyond that now because of the fact that I further do the events for the community because I don't want to isolate and keep the people out. I don't want to do nothing and just have the homies here and have it to a point to where this is a militarized situation where everybody looking crazy and got guns. I want to have the community here. I'm not gonna go and get a $500 game truck to bring to the park and ain't nothing but the homeboys in it. I'm going to get this game truck for the kids. I'm not gonna go get a jumper for the homeboys to play in. I'm going to get this for the kids. You feel what I'm saying?
No, I think a lot of the community did come out to those events.
Right, they did. Yeah. But that's what I mean, though. Myself personally, I work for the community and not for the hood. That means that, but the hood's not excluded because they're just a subdivision of the community.
Yeah, so the hood's invited.
They're welcome
every time.
Right, exactly. They're welcome. And that was the thing right there. So now these days, I see it on a bigger scale because I see greater supporters now. You know what I'm saying? That's like I had the vision of the Ferris wheel on 27th. I've told you about that?
No.
Okay, when I had a vision of a Ferris wheel on 27th Street. I wanted to do an event. I was trying to figure this out. So what I did was I had a conversation. I was working GRYD. I told people at GRYD, the people I was working for, hey man, I want to do an event because GRYD pay for events. You know, every so often they do events in communities, so they fund the events that they have, right? So I said, well, I want to do this event. I want to have a Ferris wheel. So well, we can't afford that right now, and this and this. I said, okay, cool. I'll go to the Neighborhood Association. I'm at one of the meetings a little while later. I want to have an event and I want to have a Ferris wheel. I've done the numbers on this here. We can get a Ferris wheel for about $5,000 for the day. You know, this, and this. I'm giving them a rundown on the numbers because actually did the math on it, right? So Neighborhood Association, like, we don't know. Let us get to it. Let us vote on it. Let us see this and this. So I'm thinking, you know, okay, whatever. I have a conversation. Remember Albie, the field deputy?
Yes.
But he's the field deputy for our area. So I was having a conversation with him. And I said, hey, man, one day I had a conversation with him. And he was talking. I said, man, you know, I want to put a Ferris wheel on 27th Street. I would like to have an event and have a Ferris wheel. This and this. He said, okay, well, whatever this and this, I'll talk to my boss and see what is what, right? So all of this here was just something that I had a conversation about with a bunch of people. I forgot about this. About 2 years later, man, Tick called me up. Tick said, hey, man, call Albie. He called you. So I was like, I called him. What's up, man? He said, Ronald, what's up, man? I said, oh, man, nothing too much. Yeah, man, you know I got your Ferris wheel, right? I said, what? I wasn't even thinking about this now. There's like a neighborhood association that I guess it might oversee or provide them extra funding that comes out of USC. They paid for the Ferris wheel. The field deputy pitched my idea to them because they were planning an event called the Sunfest at Lauren Miller Park. The field deputy pitched my idea for the Ferris wheel to USC. And USC literally came up with a Ferris wheel. Blew my mind. I go to the Sunfest and we really had a Ferris wheel on 27th Street. That was something that I was, you know what I'm saying? The idea is crazy because the idea never died. It was something that I put in the air and I let it be. Somebody else carried it.
Okay, but did it ever actually happen?
Yeah. Okay. When they had the Sunfest, they had, I don't know if they still do the Sunfest. They did it at once. I don't know if it was annual or what. But when they did the Sunfest, they had the Ferris wheel. I got on the Ferris wheel. I got on the Ferris wheel with Hebo.
I saw a little makeshift carnival that they did one time on Washington and Vermont where they blocked the street off and there's a bunch of...
I know you're talking about. They do that yearly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the what you call it, the Sunfest, I went to that and it was a trip to me. That was at Lauren Miller Park. We had a thing. They had everything. You know, this is another event in the park. But it was mind-blowing because the Ferris wheel was just a simple idea.
So what's next for you? Are you still in the gang intervention? Are you going to work with GRYD? Or what are your future plans?
At the moment, man, I'm
still adjusting to being home,
I'm still doing that, but I'm patched in with second call. Intervention is something that comes natural because of the fact that, I mean, like I say, if you evolve and you mature, you can't help that because of the fact that I want to say a big homie, as a mentor, as a OG, there's a certain level of responsibility that I feel that I owe to the community. And when I say it in that manner, I mean that I owe a debt of service to the community because of the fact that I'm one of the ones that I feel that I took away for so long that I never put nothing back. Yeah. Accountability is everything. So when it comes down to it, intervention is natural, with a paycheck or not.
Now, while you was gone, those 4.5, almost 5 years, did you lose a lot of friends that you weren't able to go to their funerals and things of that sort?
Man, let me tell you, man, I think about at least 20 people died since I left. I think at least 20 people died over the last, I was gone 4 years, like 4 years and 3 months, and I think at least 20 people died in that time. I think from 2020, I want to say 2022 to 2025, man, I don't know, man. See, but this was the thing. I lost a lot of people, but nobody was murdered. Everyone died of natural causes. Everyone died. What that showed me was that there's a very, very important piece of information that we lack, that we have to be conscious of, and that is health consciousness.
Yeah, because we're losing people that are dying a little too young.
We're losing people to high blood pressure and diabetes, heart attacks and aneurysms. See, to have an understanding of this here is also to understand that if we modified our diets and we were proactive within our own health and had healthy habits, a lot of this is avoidable. You know, like for instance, I understand the fact that when it comes down to it, man, that, you know what I mean, everybody got to die, but we can accelerate the process by not taking care of ourselves properly, not seeing these doctors and, you know what I mean? Since I've been out, one of my priorities, I've been out, man, I'm going to the doctor.
Yeah.
That's a priority to me, going to the doctor. I want to screen me, test me, make sure, I want to make sure, I want the colonoscopy, all of that. I'm serious because of the fact that this is the key. Things like colon cancer and prostate cancer have been killing black men forever, but they had too much pride to go to the doctor and get checked. You know, you ain't put no camera up in me and this and this and this and this here, but that's going to save your life. What about that accelerated cancer? That cancer is a beast. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to be realistic with you. I lost my mother May 30th, 2024. I lost my sister 2012. Both of them had colorectal cancer. But when they realized they had it, it was accelerated to the point to where once they told me about it, once I found out about it, they probably died within the next 45 to 60 days.
Right, so you lost your mom while you was incarcerated?
Yeah, I lost my mother last year.
Anybody from the community that was particularly close to you that you lost that you might want to mention?
Shit, man, I'm close to everybody in the community. Yeah. I'm just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've never been. I grew up with everybody. So everybody that died, I grew up with. So they was family. You know what I mean? These are the people that, as a child, we were spending the night at each other's houses. These are the people I know. Their mamas and their grandmamas. Remember when they had their kids and all that other stuff in life.
Like Big Reece.
Big Reece, yeah. Big Reece was one of my first friends when I moved into the community. Big Reece was somebody that Big Reece, I'm gonna tell you something. Outside of gangbanging, you know something if I close my eyes and remember Reece, I remember as a kid when I met Big Reece, and I met Big Reece because Big Reece was riding a dirt bike, and my father asked Big Reece could he willie, and Big Reece said he could willie. And my father gave Reece, like, I think it was like maybe $5 to willie from Adams to 29th Street. He gave him $5 to do that there. That's how me and Reece became friends. At that point, we became friends. We became friends that day.
Were you around when he was hanging out in Inglewood and I guess inspired the NHPs with some other folks?
I used to be out there with him. I used to be on Hyde Park and Beach with him.
Now, Munchie, did you know that part of the NHP history is rooted in the 20s, right?
Right, yeah. I used to be on Hyde Park and Beach. I was there. I ain't going to talk too much, but I was there. I remember all that there. I remember all them. Them was the homies.
Yeah. Was this, 80, 81?
Yep, around that time. Yeah. I remember because the homie mama was pregnant with Black. Reece's mama was pregnant with his little brother Black, rest in peace, back then. When I used to spend the night at Reece's house when I was a kid, when we was young, I used to go out there on Inglewood Avenue. I remember that. You know what I mean? Because when we was young, Reece lived right behind me.
So you saw the NHPs get founded. You saw the start of it.
I was around.
Okay.
I'm one of them neighborhoods. You know what I mean? I was there. I was around. They used to come to the hood all the time. They're the homies. You know what I mean? Killer Whack, Wimp, P-Rat. I remember JJ, Ronnie Mack. I'm trying to think who else I remember. Because all these old dudes, these are older dudes I remember. And these are the dudes we run with. You know what I mean? We was all, in them days, the way we functioned, man, we functioned together. Everybody functioned together. You know what I mean? If you was on our side of the table, then we all functioned together, regardless of where you was from, because we was all in each other's communities. That's how, right now I was explaining to people that we have a community thing going. I don't care from West Adams to Inglewood to the Nickerson Gardens to the Low Bottoms to Compton. Because if I don't know a person, I can reach a person that know that person or know their people. And I can do that in less than 2 phone calls.
Now, what's it like when you hear that a very close friend of yours passed, but you're incarcerated, you're in a cell, you're in prison, you don't have any freedom to do anything?
Depression. But then I learned to fight it. See,
depression, hey, that's deep because most people don't want to admit to depression.
Let me tell you something, man. It's things that we have to acknowledge in the streets. And there's some things because we are, and when I say we, I mean the streets in general, because of the fact that we've made common and we've made normal mental illness, I mean to say. We've made that common and we've made that normal. We don't even recognize it. The homie go crazy. He's on one. He's in the middle of the street throwing bottles. He want to fight everybody. The homie is on one. Look at him. He out there doing his thing. He out there on one. Look, he out there throwing the setup and everything. You don't have a realization the homie's having a meltdown.
Now you know what they say now. He crashed out.
He crashed out, but you don't realize he's literally having a psychological meltdown.
No, that's real talk.
He needs assistance is what he needs. He needs services is what he needs. But we think that that's on one, but that's mental illness. See what I'm saying? Because of the fact that we acknowledge that which is illogical to be logical. So if I'm in the streets, I'm out there, I see the homie, he want to run out in the middle of the street and kick car windows while they at the red light and throw bottles and try to punch windows out. This ain't the streets that he's dealing with. It's something in his head that he's dealing with. Some people got demons, man, because some people done so much within the street life, man, that they can't turn back on and they can't turn it off.
I could look
stay in their minds.
I could look back at a lot of dudes that I grew up with. Looking back at it in hindsight, bro had some mental issues.
Right.
But back then I would not have thought that.
I'm gonna share something else with you. Watch this one. This is something we never acknowledged. Alcoholism. But everybody drunk 40 ounces.
I didn't drink though.
No. But I'm talking about it was the masses though.
Yeah.
I didn't really drink neither.
No, but I hung out. One of the reasons why I hung out with Rocky so much, because Rocky didn't drink,
Right.
Rocky didn't smoke.
Right,
And I
right.
was like, oh, I got something, because I didn't drink or smoke.
Right.
I was like, Rocky don't drink or smoke.
Right.
Okay, I can hang with Rocky.
Right,
You know?
right,
But
right.
yeah, you're right. Everybody was drinking either 40 ounce, and I remember when the Cisco's came
Then
out.
they start turning it up to the old English. I mean, to the Wild Irish Rose and the Silver Satin and the Mad Dog 2020. This is alcoholism right here. This is we're not acknowledging this because this is our routine. We don't recognize it because we're so young that we don't know how to assess. We're living through it. We don't understand the fact that there's things going on. It's like someone asked me about the culture of what it is that creates the group among us, like the subculture. What creates the gang? I said, well, when I was a kid, I remember we owned a home, and we owned our house, and it's 4 boys, me and my 3 brothers, right, all from the same set. Everybody attached themselves to us because of the fact that one of the things about us was that we did have a home. A lot of people couldn't go home. A lot of people were abused. A lot of people were runaways. A lot of people couldn't go because their families lived in enemy territories. Our house was somewhere where everybody could come to.
And we got that iconic interview dropping soon. We did it in front
of my house.
in front of your old house
Yeah.
on Dalton.
Yeah, on Dalton.
Man, that's
Right.
and I want to let everybody know to look out for that interview because we were right there on 27th and Dalton,
Right.
in the middle, in the heart of it.
Right.
Even though technically the heart of the community started north of there,
But that's
Yeah.
it. Now we
but
moved
it became the heart.
We moved it.
Yeah,
See, when I was a kid, we hung out on 20th Street in LaSalle and Cordova and LaSalle back over that way, back in the Blood Alley area.
and I used to see you sometimes walking around Washington and 4th Ave. Well, what corner is the liquor store on? Washington,
Third.
Washington and 3rd.
The Relay.
Yeah, I used to see you around there a lot.
I was all over the West Side.
Yeah.
You know, one thing about me, man. I've been there so long. I know I've been everywhere, and everybody know me. I don't even look at my perspective of things when I see people. Right, it's like the homies. They look up, and this is my hood. That's their hood. That's this hood. This is all my hood. I've been here so long before all these people were even here that was doing this here.
Now, I just did an interview with the founder of Gramercy Street Hustler. He goes by Mustafa now because he's Muslim. But in the interview, he said, the first kid that I saw out here gang banging from West Side Rolling 20s Bloods was Madd Ronald. He said he had a bandana in his back pocket, and he must have been a kid, but he was banging before any of us was banging.
24th Street Elementary School.
Yeah.
I was a gang member in 3rd grade.
Hey, that's funny, right? Because my dad said it's crazy. These kids, they turn 18 and join gangs. We was banging in elementary.
Yeah.
You know who his dad is?
Nah.
His dad's from the Swans.
Yeah, he from A9 family. They call him P-Ball.
I think I heard of him. I think I was in the county with him.
Yeah, my dad, he one of the ones put the F and S together, like, you know, because he from A9 family, you know.
Right. I know what you're saying. I remember them days. I remember when they was all at Fremont. That all happened when they was going to Fremont doing all that fighting with the East Coasters back in the days when they became one. I remember when they was 2 different things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But see, the interesting thing is that, like, I don't want to say, when I was a kid, right, I was a hood baby.
Plus, you had the older brothers, too.
Right.
That was very influential.
I didn't hang out with kids my age. The only kid I hung out that was probably my age was Nut. And you know, Nut is, we family. You know, my family and they family. You know our people is related.
And Nut just came home
Yeah.
from doing about 20.
Yeah. But that was the only person my age I hung out with.
Now, talk about the influence of your 2 older brothers, K-Ray and Crazy B, because those names always come up. When you talk about the history of the 20s, K-Ray and Crazy B always come up.
What you're going to always hear when you hear that history, you're going to hear them talk about our house because of the fact that our house we owned our home to start with. There were 4 boys in the house and was no female figure in the house. My stepmother left when I was like about 12. My father was on the east side getting his money. He just come home and bring groceries home.
So you guys pretty much had the freedom to do whatever y'all wanted to do.
Whatever we wanted to do. We raised each other. My 2 older brothers raised me, and I raised my little brother. You know what I'm saying? This is the way we did. But see, this is the thing, and this is back in the days. I always tell people that the way that we were in them days. In the city of LA, if you were affiliated and you was a blood, then we knew you one way or another because you knew at least one of us because all of us had been we was going through the prisons and the juvenile halls and we was at the parties and you understand what I mean? It's 4 of us, so it's always one of us somewhere. So everybody's coming back to the house. We got people coming. We got bounty hunters coming to our house. We got people coming from the Millers. We got people coming from all over the place coming to the house. You know what I'm saying? But the people that's coming to the house at the same time, these are such early days that we're building these bonds and these relationships. Like, once again, these is independence. A lot of these, I remember when my brother got out of prison, because there are relationships that people don't talk about and don't know. They don't know we had a relationship with the Millers because of my brother and Drayline. My brother and Drayline was in Susanville together. Drayline from Millers. And Drayline, I think he got life or something now. But him and my brother was real tight, real tight. And we had a relationship with the Millers, right? And that was something that was interesting. I was in jail when they used to come down there, but I used to hear about it. And I used to talk to Drayline on the phone. But at the same time, you know what I mean? It's like you wouldn't expect that relationship to exist because it's so far away. But this is the bonds that's built through like the institutions, because they was friends. They met in prison. And they themselves built the bond. That's when being a homie was, you had to be a real homie. If I see you and we in general population somewhere and you tell me, you from there? Okay, I know you with it, because I'm looking around at everybody else in this room and they not with it and they ready to take your head off. So if you telling me what you are, I know you with it. You know what I mean?
Hey, it's amazing that when you hear a lot of families, big families like yours that all banged the set, amazingly, all you guys survived. And you guys lived through a very tumultuous history of gangbanging. Because everybody has a family that gangbang, they lost somebody.
Right.
Somebody in that family they lost.
Right.
You know? And
Right.
I'm just thinking here, all four of you guys are still
Survived
here.
it.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody doing no life sentences. But ain't nobody doing no life sentences. But boy, believe me, don't think ain't nobody they sat in no courtrooms and fought no murders.
Okay,
no
but let me ask you this. If you was to add up how much time all four of you guys did, it's got to be over 50, right?
I would say that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time.
Because your little brother even did time in the feds.
All our lives, we've been in and out of jail all our lives. I mean, it was common. See,
Is all y'all out right now?
yeah, we all out. Everybody older now.
Yeah.
They're not even in. My brother's
Yeah, but it'd be hard when all four brothers is affiliated for all y'all to stay out at one time.
That's the hard part.
Right.
That was the hard part. Now that we all older now, we all out in this. That was the hard part. It was always one of us in jail.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that's just the wave. That's the way it goes. That's the cycle. You
It's
know
hard.
what I'm saying?
It's difficult.
That's the cycle right there. You know what I mean? It's always going to be that way. It's the same way when it comes down to dealing with, let us say, the urban subculture. I ain't going to say the gang. But it's the same type of situation when it comes to dealing with that, because of the fact that one of the strategies that law enforcement uses is you got to keep everybody all balanced. So everybody can't be on the streets at one time. It's going to be total chaos. So we always going to be locking people up.
And that was basically the Southwest Division over there.
Southwest.
You guys must have had a really close relationship with Southwest PD.
And let me tell you something. Hold on. Listen to this. And this is honest God truth, and this is a reality I did not realize, right? You know who used to live down the street from me? Lived right, like say where you enter Dalton Avenue or you enter the park at?
Yeah.
Right there on Dalton when you pass 27?
Yeah.
You know who lived in that house over there? Right over there? Bernard Parks.
Is that right?
Bernard Parks was the chief of Southwest. I didn't realize this until I got older, because I went to jail one time. Now, I remember as a kid, it was a highway patrolman that stayed across the street from me, right? But it was a black police officer that used to live down the block. He used to drive an unmarked police car, right? We knew it. We used to always, you know how that go. You see him coming, we panicking and damn near ready to run because we think they coming for us, right? I go to jail one day. I got caught with a knife in my pocket, man, a long time ago. This is like 82. I'm a kid. I'm like, that's about 82. I got caught with a knife in my pocket or something. I had went to jail for concealed weapon. I go to Southwest. They finna send me to juvenile hall. So I'm in there talking shit. You know what I mean? I'm young. I don't know. I'm in there talking shit. I'm in there talking like, fuck that. Send me. I don't give a fuck. I'm just going to the hall. I don't care. You know what I mean? This and this. You know how we talk about jail when we was young. You know, I don't give a fuck. I just go to the hall. We with the homies, gangbang. This and that. So they had to go talk to who controls the jails? The watch commander? Watch commander, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Come in there. Motherfucker look at me and say, he looked at me. I'm in here on some stupid shit, because I'm in here like on my gangbanging shit. Yeah, blood, this and that blood, fuck that blood, is it right? I'm 14 years old. Dude come in here and say, I know you, police. I don't know you. I don't know no police. you know how that, imagine how I am back then. I don't know no police. You don't know me. Well, right? I'm like that. He says, where do you live? What's your address? I said 2647 South Dalton Avenue. He said, Do you know Michael Evans and Tony Evans? These are more guys on the block that I grew up with. Two brothers that lived down the way. You know, we all grew up together, right? They only lived, like, considering I lived 2 houses from 27th, they lived probably 3 houses on the other side of 27th. Yeah, I know them. Isn't this? He said, yeah, I live next door to them. I'm looking like, what the fuck? Because in my mind, I forgot all, but this dude ain't never been on my radar, but it struck me. Damn, there's a police that live on our block. He told the officers, they said, what y'all do? He said, what y'all doing with him? He said, he's finna go to Central Juvenile Hall, this and this and this. He said, no. Call his parents and send him home. And he sent me home. He sent me home instead of letting him go to the hall.
So you talking about Bernard Parks?
Yeah, Bernard Parks.
Okay, I never knew Bernard Parks lived right
Bernard
there.
Parks. No, listen to this. Listen to this. And it's interesting because I didn't know that neither. And I remember the event back in what you were just talking about. Bernard Parks came to that event.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Nah, yeah, I remember. I've met Bernard Parks several times as an adult, as a grown man.
But not as the police chief.
Nah.
But he came to the event, remember? Bernard Parks is really attached to West Adams. He lived there.
Yeah.
I didn't know this. I was reading somewhere that Bernard Parks was the watch commander at Southwest for a long time because he was one of the first black officers to have that much rank. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I was reading about this, and I was like, whoa, that was Bernard Parks like a motherfucker. See, I'm older now. I can put 2 and 2 together. I know who is who and what is what.
Yeah, that is crazy. That is crazy. All right, man. Let the people know what you got going on. Do you still got the Madd Ronald Radio popping off, or?
Yeah, Madd Ronald Radio podcast and Hoodwire TV, y'all. That's where y'all can find me at. Madd Ronald Radio podcast. You can catch that at on all social media platforms. It's soon to be available on platforms like Podbeam, so therefore it'll be available on all podcasting platforms.
Because we could sit here and I could chop it up with you for.
Yeah, I know you can.
We used to be on the phone just
yeah, I
talking.
already know.
I was just telling my kids the story. You witnessed my 5.0 Mustang get stolen. I was out of town, and you was calling me.
I was calling you.
And I was looking. I was like, "Oh, this Madd
I was standing there when they pulled the tow truck up. I seen the dudes looking at the car.
Yeah.
And the dudes was pulling the tow, and I thought you was getting it fixed because you had said something about it. You said something about something. You just told me something about something had to be done to it or something.
Yeah. But I parked right there on Adams because there's no street cleaning.
Right.
There was never no street cleaning on Adams. So, and I was going out of town.
Right.
So I knew my car was good there for a few days.
Right.
You was posted up.
I was out there doing my thing, selling dope, and I seen the dudes out there, and I said, you said something about it had to be fixed or something. You said something about it having to be fixed, and I'm thinking, I said, well, maybe they taking it to the shop, and I said, wait, let me call him and check, because they hadn't hooked it up yet. If I would have said something, ain't no way they could have took that car.
Now I'm in Philadelphia, in the middle of something, and I see you calling me, but I'm like, I can't take this call right now because I know I'm gonna be on the phone with Madd Ronald for a minute.
Right.
And I deliberately said I regret not answering that call because to this day I ain't never seen that Mustang again.
Right.
That car disappeared off the face of the earth.
They probably
and
took
you could have stopped it from happening if I would have answered the call.
That's just the point right there, because you remember them days how it was out there. I could have simply said, hey y'all.
Hey, what y'all doing?
Yeah, you know that the way we was at that moment in time. It was it was young homies hanging out, standing out there with me, watching it happen.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean. If I would have said, "Hey," that wouldn't even happen. They wouldn't even got that car.
And it's crazy because a convertible 5.0 Mustang right now is a little pricey right now.
I know it is.
Yeah, I wish I still had it.
All you have to do is answer the phone.
Yeah, that's all
I do. I would call. I think I called him about 4 times too.
And you know who I got that car from, right?
Who?
Rocky.
Oh yeah, that's right. He did have that car.
I got that car from Rocky.
That's right.
Yeah,
I think I called you about 4 times. I was calling you, wasn't answering, and I was standing there. I'm on the corner under the stop sign where your car was at.
Yeah.
I'm standing at the stop sign on Brighton and Adams, standing there watching them, and I'm got the phone in my hand. And I'm trying to call you because I'm waiting to see. I said, but you didn't answer. I said maybe that must be his mechanic or somebody. They did it in broad daylight.
Yeah.
Bold.
Yeah, that's the point right
You
there.
believe that much? They pulled up with a tow
I can
truck.
believe it.
They pulled up with a tow truck and towed my Mustang.
In broad daylight. They did this.
They did it
in front of
often.
everybody.
They did it often. That's what that told me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did it in what it is. They scoped it out. That's what they did.
How they scope it out and all these bloods and thugs is right here.
No. Watch this.
They was just bold about it.
No, they scoped the car out and seen that the car had just been sitting there for a while.
Because I was gone for at least 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, they seen the car was sitting there and it was unattended.
So they got your ass on day 3.
Probably.
In reality, when I seen him and I was out there, I think that it wasn't even nobody out there at first. Because the people started, the homies seeing me out there, and we out there talking, what's going on? I said, I see that's the homie car right there. I think he's going to the shop. I'm trying to call him right now.
The only reason why that car got stolen because I was out of town.
That's
I was
great.
out of town.
No, not because you out of town. 'Cause you didn't answer.
Well, yeah, I didn't answer, too. I should have answered it. But Madd Ronald Radio.
Madd Ronald Radio Podcast.
Okay, Madd Ronald Radio Podcast.
Yes.
Tap in with that. We got a Madd Ronald interview dropping. Munchie, give them your handles.
Man, check me out, Munchie B the Mayor YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram, MB_the Mayor, and help me run it up, man. I'm trying to get 30K, you know what I'm saying, subscribers. I'm at 26. Help me do it up over there.
Almost at 30K. And this is the only platform where you're going to see different generations sitting together having a conversation about this LA history. And I'm Alex Alonso at Alex Alonso 101 on all social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. And make sure you check out the Madd Ronald interview on the Street TV platform. We out.